To go in the opening quarter. Sanders pressured off for the fake and throws another interception. Mac Jones picked it off.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
All three tight ends on the field again. It's a run on the delay. Thomas, the touchdown. And Utah strikes first.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Jerome Ford, big seam. Jerome Ford is revving and tearing it up. Touchdown, Cincinnati, 79 yards.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Bazelak in trouble, lofts it up to the end zone. They got it, touchdown. Tight end, Daniel Parker. And this one is in the books. Missouri wins it by 1.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
If you are only a fan of the Smoak family, today's not your day. Because they're out. Just me, Garrett Ross, here on Sikkim 365 Radio. Jack McKenzie's in studio. Garrett Ross will be hanging out with me today. Emery Winter is here. Faith Lynch in the studio today. Happy to see our favorite person in the world, Faith Lynch, here in the studio today. She's got a podcast she just did. And so if you're a Sikkim365.com member, you can see that. But that's just the pleasantries. And hello to everybody on the chat room, on the text line, everybody watching and listening today, however you are receiving the show. Shots fired at the Pac-12 media days today by George Kliavkoff, Garrett. Let's go ahead and put that quote up on the screen. We'll get right to it. I've been spending 4 weeks trying to defend grenades from every corner of the Big 12. I get why they're scared. I get why they're trying to destabilize us. I got a message for George Kliavkoff, who I know why he's doing this. The Big 12 did not destabilize you. The Big 10 did. When the Big 10 took Los Angeles from you, they destabilized you. Now, the Big 12 is just trying to be proactive. You guys apparently tried to work something out, but clearly the interest of both conferences right now are not doing any kind of partnership. And part of that is probably because if Washington and Oregon decide none of this is good for them, then they can just go at the end of the TV contract. They can apply somewhere else and try to start something new. You know, that's why they're not necessarily in the position of strength. Now, I do think a lot of this Big 12 and Pac-12 sniping is like splitting hairs at times, but come on, man. Like,
to me, it's one of those situations where why are you going at the Big 12? Like, you should have immediately been talking about what the Big 10 did to you and everything. And I understand, and I feel like more of this is driven per se by the media than people actually involved, whether it be on the Big 12 party or on the Pac-12 party. But at the same time, I think if you're going to address that, there was a note out there I saw earlier about during this press conference, he mentioned the Big 12 5 different times. If you go back and look at your mark, he never brought up the Big 12 by name. He's brought them, the Pac-12 by name. He's brought the Pac-12 up once off the record, and it was only because of this in the first place. So if I don't understand the animosity coming from him, and it's not like the Big 12 is trying to destabilize you. You're destabilizing yourself.
Yeah, you're destabilized. The Big 12 was in the same position 365 days ago.
Absolutely.
So they are just saying, look, we, like Brett Yormark is saying, yeah, we're open for business. You know, if things happen, the Big 12 has to be aggressive. That's what they're doing. And look, I don't disagree with George Kliavkoff's stance of, you know, every presidential State of the Union address, like the state of our union is strong. Well, it depends on when you're talking about. Some days it is and some days it's not. And, you know, but every president, when they go out and talk to the State of the Union, they're like, everything's great. It's going well. Mm-hmm. Even when we all know, like, no, you know, you can't walk, you know, in 2020, no matter what you're having, like, you can't be like, State of our Union is strong. Is it? Is it really? I've been inside. Like, I don't know. So there's all these different things, and he's trying to politicize it and, you know, say a lot. And there's one thing he said, which I think is, the only thing I think he said that was absolutely totally ridiculous, had to do with UCLA. But Garrett, he's trying to get water out of the boat. And I understand that, but I mean, I wish everybody would approach this with some sort of realism, which I don't think we're in right now.
Well, I think that you could make that case for every aspect of life right now.
Yeah.
There's no realism or there's no like common ground on anything. But I thought that one of the most unique things listening to him was how he went into the recruiting. And he was like, well, we got 5 stars. Bro, you got 1 5-star quarterback at Oregon, and Utah has no 5 stars. You can't count the ones that are at USC, in my opinion, because they're Big Ten now. So I thought that was kind of funny that he was trying to take a shot at the Big 12 when, I mean, obviously, you know, Baylor, they have what, like 6 4-stars. They don't have any 5 stars. But if you're, I just thought it was ironic that you're throwing shots at the 5-star aspect when that's a laughable. And who's to say that he's going to be there, the Oregon quarterback will be there after this year? He might transfer to, I don't know, a Big Ten school.
Well, I mean, or anywhere. I mean, like, things change really fast in college football now. And, yeah, you might have some 5-star recruits. As a matter of fact, the team that's been the best in your league the last couple of years, Utah, is the story of how you win a league without 5-star recruits.
Yep.
Where you find guys that are 3 stars and grow them to excellent college football players. That's what Kyle Whittingham does. He's not going to getting 4 and 5 stars. He's getting some 4 stars. Mm-hmm. He gets transfers.
When they go to hire, they're hiring they're making splash hires, right? And they're not working out. Where you look at Utah's a prime example. I mean, Whittington wasn't a splash hire. I don't think
USC and UCLA stay in the conference. And he said, look, USC's, it's pretty much done. But he did mention, like, well, UCLA's got an interesting situation about the California university system. Look, I hate to break it to anybody who thinks that UCLA is going to wind up staying. They're not. The government doesn't have that much. The governor doesn't have that much say over it. He can say all he wants. There's been one time in American history where a governor has affected the conference placement. That was Ann Richards and Bob Bullock here, and that was a very different time. That was a very, very different time. Once Rick Perry opened up the door so that A&M could walk right out, the national precedent is set. It's totally set. You can't go back. You can't just change things when the wheels are turning. And Gavin Newsom is
kind of find that laughable in a sense because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And you got a lot of people who are involved with it for egos and outside agendas that are not even have the best mindset or understanding of the situation at hand. So it kind of gets, I don't know, it's just odd in a sense.
Yeah. Let's see, from Bala. Kliavkoff isn't mad at the dude that took his wife, the Big Ten. He's mad at the neighbor that's offering to take his kids because he's having a mental break. Sure, makes sense. Carry on. Yeah, and, you know, we have, you know, lots of, I'm trying to catch up here. Again, I'm flying solo today. The Smoak's taking the day off. We're about to get into football season where our lives are pretty much over.
Yep.
You know, I say that like our lives aren't over. We'll be alive, but we will not have a lot of free time to do anything.
Not much free time at all.
Yeah. Have our own private thoughts. Those kind of things are gone once football season. You have Friday, Saturday, Sunday of doing stuff all day long. So, you know, it is this, the Pac-12, Big 12 war has been or war of words has been very interesting to me. And look, George Kliavkoff has to defend the Pac-12 now. That's his job. He has to stand up there and lobby for the Pac-12. But realistically, I'm sure like he's like a hamster on a wheel right now, just trying to make it go and make it go and make it go, because there are holes in the plan because you don't have USC and UCLA anymore.
Going back to those comments about the USC and UCLA, when I thought it was interesting and kind of ironic when he was saying, "Oh well, we would bring USC back, but not UCLA." Like, of course you would bring USC back. That's your staple program for the football.
But he thinks. I mean, he did make a comment that UCLA might be forced to stay in California. It's not happening. That's all political talk. There are people who don't care about sports in California, in that California university system, who need an answer for why this happened without their say-so.
Well, I think
and that's all that will be.
Well, going back to that right there, I think when you look at the West Coast in general, me and Jack were talking about this earlier, there's just more interest in the Big 12 and in other conferences because, the West Coast. You go out there, there's a million different opportunities, different things you can do to buy time. If you're in Ames, Iowa, what the hell are you going to do other than watch football? Obviously, you're going to be more dialed in Kansas, Texas. I mean, we breathe football here. So I think that's one of the more interesting things when you see the argument try to be made about the Pac-12 being a stronger conference, because I don't see that at all just from a geographical standpoint and what you can do there. I mean, we're more consumed in this area, in this region. Football just means more than in other aspects of life.
Well, yeah, and look, John Baptist, I see that we care about sports in California.
I know you do, but not.
I know that they do, but the people that are complaining about UCLA
Correct.
leaving are not the people who care about sports. So the
Exactly.
people who care about research dollars and things like that they're going to lose because UCLA is going to the Big Ten. So that money there's some money changing hands, because UCLA and the Big Ten has this gigantic research. I'll ask Tony Altimore about it. But they have all this together. And, but yeah. No, John, I see you, John. Like, I see your comments. No, I know you care about football. The people I'm talking about that care about football, but there's a different level. We care about college football here a lot more than it's cared about in a lot of the West Coast.
Absolutely.
But, I'll use the argument of the San Francisco TV market. So the San Francisco TV market, right, is the number 6 market, I believe, number 5, 6 market in the country. So the Pac-12 has that. The Big Ten could have it if they went and got Cal and Stanford, right, or one or the other.
Right.
But say they went and got Cal and Stanford and brought them in, like has been rumored that they're interested in. So they get Cal and Stanford into the mix, and they have the San Francisco TV market. But it's kind of fool's gold in a way, in that, you know what? The Birmingham TV market, which is much smaller, watches a whole lot more college football than the San Francisco TV market. So even though there's more people there, more people in Birmingham, more concentrated viewership in Birmingham watches college football. So more people in Birmingham, which is not a small city, but it's not San Francisco, are watching college football than the people in San Francisco, where they have 2 big colleges. Now, part of that is because Alabama's there and they're the best thing going right now, but part of it also is just about the local passion. So yeah, they care, but like, people care, but like, I'm telling you, if you have not been, like, just comparatively being out, I've been out there, I've been, get to go all over the country, people care about football here. We care about high school football in Texas. Like, there's maybe 1 or 2 other states that like could get in the ballpark of where we are, Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, like southern Pennsylvania, really. Yeah. But, I mean, for all intents and purposes, and I don't mean this as a shot at all, but most everywhere else in the country, when you leave high school, you don't go hang out at high school football games. It's not a shot. It's just in Texas, it's a huge, huge deal. And so we care about football from peewee to high school all the way up the line. So, again, you're talking about concentrated passion as opposed to spread out passion.
Yeah, and I also think it's kind of a lifeblood here. It kind of reminds me of when you look at the TV markets in the Northeast, right? They're more concentrated on your NBA, your MLB, and everything, because there's not enough college vibes up there. I guess there's more.
Well, there's more
things.
There's more than just the college,
right?
This is like Waco's a college town. when we started doing a show here, which has thank God to all of you, become far more national. But when we started, we were doing college first before we started talking about the Cowboys and the Rangers and everything else. It was Baylor first, then everything else. Now we're college football first and then everything else. And part of the reason is that we have that concentrated effort and thought is we're in a college football market. You go up to Dallas, I'm guest on Dallas radio shows quite frequently because they have guys who know college football, but they're not in it. Yeah. Like we are. And so, yeah, we go, because Dallas is a pro sports market. You go to, they have 3 sports stations there, 2 of them that are wildly successful right now in the Ticket and the Fan. And the Ticket is the sports talk station that kind of started it all. But they will talk when the Ticket's not goofing around. Mm-hmm. The Fan is almost all Cowboys all the time. But they will talk Cowboys, Mavericks, Rangers, Stars, mostly before they get to college football. Now, look, if it's, Texas OU weekend or something like that, then maybe stuff gets moved to the top of the queue. Baylor's on a roll, that gets moved to the top of the queue. But the Cowboys signing Kevontae Turpin got way more talk because they're all out there in Oxnard right now than the Big 12, Pac-12 and Dallas sports radio. In Los Angeles, the day that UCLA and USC left, people were talking about what are the Lakers going to do?
Yeah, or Kevin Durant.
Or are the Lakers going to get Kevin Durant? Or can the Lakers, get Kyrie Irving and all these different things? That's what they were talking about. Can the Dodgers get healthy? Why is Max Muncy only hitting 208? That's what they were talking about. Those were the things that they brought up. They brought it up, but it was in passing. So there's a difference, and it's not about states. It's more about markets. So in San Francisco, what they're worried about? Is Trey Lance going to be the starter? If he's not, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be healthy at any point? The Warriors, what are they going to do in the offseason to defend their title?
Right.
Giants and A's, all that stuff. The San Jose Sharks offseason, all that stuff's there. Believe me, I wonder when the last time that Bay Area sports radio spent any time or even local news coverage outside of on Saturdays when they play, any time on Cal or Stanford.
Maybe when Marshawn took the cart. That's probably about it.
But Saturday, sure. Like if you're doing news on Saturday in the fall in the Bay Area, yeah, you're going to throw up some Cal and Stanford highlights and maybe a USC thing because that's a good sports report. But you got 4 minutes or less most of the time, so you're probably going to say oh, hey, Trey Lance getting ready for the big game this week. Kyle Shanahan says this. That's what you're going to do. So part of it is not the market size, but how much the whatever market cares about something.
I also think it would be expecting the Paul Feinbaum show to be moved out of the SEC and put in I don't think the Paul Feinbaum show, if it went to the Pac-12 or up in the West Coast, would get near as much attention or be nearly as popular as it is just because of the base. Am I wrong in that aspect?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Look, we saw Cal and Stanford delivered San Francisco like Rutgers delivers New York. It's something that they can say, but how many New Yorkers are really sitting back? I mean, they got that so they could get the cable station, but they're, the Big Ten networks not bragging about all the people from Piscataway, New Jersey watching the channel. They're not. I mean, it helped them get that TV deal, but that's why. I would
like to see the numbers though. I don't think that's really driving much.
I don't think so either. USC and UCLA bring the LA market so they can say we're in Chicago, New York, LA, and DC. They can say that. They've got that. Columbus, Ohio is a gigantic market. They're in Detroit because of Michigan and Michigan State. They've got these big, gigantic, huge media markets where a lot of the schools are big schools that have big alumni bases like Ohio State, Michigan State. But some of them, are smaller places. So they've got that. But again, to me, that is a little bit fool's gold in that, yes, you have these big television markets, but
it doesn't translate.
It doesn't necessarily translate. I'm not saying it's not important. Would I like the ACC or the Big 12 to be able to say those same kind of things so that all this nonsense could stop? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But sometimes, the Miami Hurricanes do not necessarily move the needle in Miami.
I see it. That's hard for me to believe.
I mean, they do, but Miami sports don't necessarily move the needle in Miami unless they're good. Miami is a stars town, man. They are about stars. They're about celebrity. They're about success. They're about this. If you're not good, they don't care. The Marlins. Okay? Look, the Heat, when were the Heat the most popular? When they had the three of the best players in the league. When LeBron was there. They were the most popular then. When they had, or before that, when they had Shaq, one of the most, famous people in the world was playing for the Heat. That's when they're the most popular. They're on an uptick right now because if they say they pull off Kevin Durant, that's going to be huge. Miami moves the needle for them when Miami was Miami. But they're not anymore. They're a shell of that.
Right.
So, yeah, the Dolphins, everybody would love the Dolphins to be good in Miami, especially the people who cover them. So they're not covering, abject mediocrity for all this time. So the argument about TV size, again, across the whole way, I would tell you the SEC has much better viewership than the Big Ten does across the markets that they say they have.
Oh, I think that's 100% correct. I mean, college football wasn't built on big markets. College football wasn't built around big cities. It was about, Tuscaloosa. Have you been to Tuscaloosa?
Yes.
There's nothing near it. There's nothing to do there. You have Rammer Jammers. Cool.
Yeah.
What the hell else are you going to do? But it means so much to them. And that's where it kind of gets diluted, and that's where we're losing, to me, along with the academic side, that's where we're losing the true meaning of college athletics.
Yes. I think here's a finer point on that. Not everybody in San Francisco cares about Stanford. Not everybody in Miami cares about Miami. Not everybody in Los Angeles cares about USC or UCLA, although USC to some bigger point because they were dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, dudes. And LA and Miami are very similar in this regard when it comes to sports. But everybody in some of these smaller markets do. Everybody in Birmingham's watching the SEC, and not just Bama. Mm-hmm. Everybody in Athens, Georgia is watching the SEC. Everybody in Baton Rouge and New Orleans are watching the SEC. And New Orleans is a pro sports town too, but that's an SEC.
It's different, though.
It's different. It's a little different. But, everybody, look, when Baylor's playing, I know that we're not a big town, but, most of the people are concentrated watching it. Like you have
College Station.
Yeah, College Station. Again, not as big of a place, but the eyeballs are concentrated more. And so if I'm an advertiser, I sometimes will maybe want not necessarily volume, but effectiveness.
Exactly.
So I want people to see and hear my spots. Now, I know that that's not the reality of it. The reality is listen, I'm an advertiser. I'm Budweiser. I want to be in as many spots as I can be. I get it. Fine. But sometimes you can overestimate how many people care. We might get Sam Bradshaw on the show later. He wrote an article about this. Tony Altimore can talk about this. Some of these TV ratings differences are subjective depending on what you're really looking at.
Right.
The channel matters. All these things matter. So this is not as black and white as everybody would have it. And I'm not saying the Big Ten is egregiously overvalued. They've done a good job at valuing themselves, but being able to loop those television markets in, of which some of it are ghost viewers, potential viewers that aren't ever really going to watch it. So you're selling on potential, really. Potentially, listen, if the Big Ten got super popular, everybody in Chicago, New York, LA, and DC could be watching it once.
But I don't think it matters, even in Chicago.
Yeah. Chicago is America's best sports town. If you're watching us from Chicago, you're in the best sports town. There's no better sports town, no better sports fans than in Chicago. Everybody in Chicago seems to get it, but their school is Northwestern, right?
Yeah.
So while they might go, and there's a lot of Notre Dame people and people from the Big Ten in Chicago. So yeah, Chicago was more of a college sports town than anywhere else of those big cities because of all the transplants, but it's kind of like Dallas. When you're getting Dallas, you could say that, yeah, you're getting A&M in Texas and all that, but you're also getting Mizzou and Kansas and everybody who's moved in from there. Oklahoma State. That's what it is. Chicago's the same way. So, yeah, those are probably better college sports town because they're hubs, but, New York City and Los Angeles are...
It doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, it's not
You can't tell me it. I don't think you could prove it to me that the people in New York or L.A. give a damn about college sports. I just don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So... but yeah, I just think it's different. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk, by the way. Yeah. Garrett and I we've been on a heater here. I'm bringing in Tony Altimore in the next segment, and we can roll through some of this. And look, he can break down numbers wise, and I'm willing to admit that I might be wrong, but I'm just saying that sometimes you need to look at not just these kind of hollow numbers of there's 5 million people that live here. Okay, of those 5 million people, who gives a crap? Yeah. But there's 750,000 people here, and 350,000 of them give a crap. And then like another 150,000 will hang out with those people because they don't want to be bored on Saturdays. Yep. That's kind of a difference.
It's something to do in a small town.
Well, look, if you have a city of 7 million and a city of 1 million, right? Those are still really big cities. Let's just say a city of 2 million and a city of 750,000.
Okay.
If of the 2 million, 100,000 people are going to watch, and of the 750,000, 350,000 are going to watch, where are the television ratings better for you? Where are you hitting more people?
The smaller market.
And the place that people care.
Yep.
So again, I'm not going to, like, if I was, trying to sell kimchi, I'm not going to go where there's not a lot of people who eat kimchi all the time. I'm going to go to markets where it's concentrated and I can sell that. Mm-hmm. It's a specialty food. If you didn't grow up eating it or you haven't tried it, you like it, you may not eat it. Okay. I can't sell you on it if you've never had it.
Right.
But if you have had it and I know mine is good, then you're going to buy it. I know that's a random example, but look, if you grow up in a place that doesn't care as much about college football as a smaller place that does, I can try to sell you college football in that market. And I'm sure as hell going to try, because if it hits, it's going to be big. But I'm certainly going to concentrate a lot of efforts in a place like Birmingham, who super cares.
Yep.
Who's going to eat my Duke's mayonnaise?
I'm not touching Duke's mayonnaise.
Well, yeah, but who's going to eat my Duke's mayonnaise and drink my Dr. Pepper and all that stuff? Like, that's what I'm going to do. Tony Altimore joins us next. Grayson Grunhafer at 3:45. At 4:30, Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback and college football analyst. John Kurtz will talk about this feud with us, and we're going to replay Tim Brando from yesterday because it was solid freaking gold. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, the new 2022 Impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 have 2.9% for 72 months, plus $4,500 competitive bonus cash going on now. That's right, and $4,500 bonus cash. This incentive on the new 2022 Wagoneers for a limited time only at Allen Samuels in Waco. First responders get $500 extra cash. Come shop the new car and truck inventory today at Allen Samuels Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, Warm, welcome home.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
Welcome back, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. A good friend of the show, a very excellent consultant, a guy who knows a lot of Pac-12 history, a guy who crunches numbers for us, Tony Altimore. But before that, joined us. Thank you. Listen, another one that we've added here. Listen, the way that West Virginia fans have been so enthusiastically watching the show, I in no way thought we would get a mini helmet. And so if I should have bet money with the rest of the people, we would all, right? We're not getting a mini helmet. They're enthusiastic. So a new addition to the set, West Virginia, as the Big 12 starts to get filled out. So they're there. Joey Foster, if you're watching, now you can rest easy. All that. Tony Altimore joins us now. And Tony, George Kliavkoff fired some shots today at the Pac-12 Media Days. Some of them made a little sense to me. Some of them didn't. What were your thoughts on the grenades comment and everything else that George had to say? Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. All right. Hey, Tony, we're having a problem with our sound right now. We're going to take a quick break and try and fix it and come right back. So stay there, and we'll get this worked out. Everybody on the chat room, thank you for letting us know. We're going to take a quick break. Guys, just hit break 1 again, and we'll be right back after this once we figure out the sound.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, the new 2022 Impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 have 2.9% for 72 months, plus 4,500 competitive bonus cash going on now. That's right, and 4,500 bonus cash. This incentive on the new 2022 Wagoneers for a limited time only at Allen Samuels in Waco. First responders get 500 extra cash. Come shop the new car and truck inventory today at Allen Samuels Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. All right, let's just do this because we just did it for us. There's my backpack. Tony, we're going to give the chat room a chance to tell us they can hear us. So, Tony, just say hello to the chat room for me to see if we got this right. Okay, good deal. All right, chat room, tell me, did you hear Tony? Still nothing. No, still nothing. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call you on the phone, Tony. That way, yeah, we'll do that. So, it looked like, I know you guys couldn't hear it, but let's admit it, that looked really good.
Tony, he has an elite setup.
Tony's setup is great. Tony's setup is great. Yeah. So, all right, go ahead and pot him up. Tony, you there?
I'm here.
All right.
Hey, guys.
There we go. Okay. So, let's rewind. Let's go back to 0. And so here we are. Let's pretend chat room like this never happened, that we planned to do it on the phone the whole time.
I like it. Perfect.
Yeah. I'll just wipe out the past. It happens all the time in America. So, George Kliavkoff, threw out some bombs today, taking grenades and all that stuff about the Big 12. What did he say that had merit, and what was defensive and maybe trying to bail water?
So I thought there were a couple things. First of all, this is a side piece, but the majority of what he talked about was literally, I thought he was like quoting Craig Dragon. The stuff that he said about NIL, the stuff that he said about the sport and the games and the importance of school and balancing to not just sort of become professional leagues and all that was, especially for you folks in the chat room. I mean, that's exactly the kind of stuff that you guys talk about all the time. Mm-hmm. Second, he fired a couple shots. There are a couple of things that I thought we should point out. First of all, Brett Yormark and George Kliavkoff are friends, so it would not surprise me in the least if he went backstage and had a text from Brett Yormark that was a fire emoji and a shopping cart emoji.
Yeah.
Because they're friends. I mean that's there's an element of that when you get folks on that level that you kind of have. But what I think is also important is he did something that I think was important. You guys talk a lot about that Bob Bowlesby did last year, which is to really sort of shoot out the gun to say, hold on, we're not just taking this laying down. We are in this game and we are standing up to baloney. I think that there's an understanding that a lot of the baloney that's going on right now is stuff from like the Twitterati of like Iowa State and Kansas State, more so than actually anything that matters. But I think it's important for them to actually stand up a little bit to that. So that's where, he had the line about, the line about with respect to the Big 12 being open for business. I appreciate that. We haven't decided whether we're going shopping there or not yet. And let's be honest, guys. That line was written by a sassy intern.
It was, definitely.
It was written by a sassy, fabulous intern in their office in San Francisco who probably couldn't tell you which sports ball game was going on. But is great at writing those types of things. And that kid should get a raise, whoever they are. Probably some kid from Stanford. It might have been written by the Stanford tree, So I would say keep that in mind. He pointed out, which I thought was kind of important and powerful for the conference to hear. A lot of your audience is hearing this in terms of like a Big 12 mindset. Think about it just like what you guys needed to hear from Bob Bowlesby last year. The Pac-12 needed to hear this from him today. They needed to hear our folks are in this together, and he actually challenged him. He said, if you don't think we're in this together, take it to the president. One of the things that I've sort of been hearing, because I'm looking at stuff from lots of different angles that I hear kind of a little more than a lot of your folks here, is that with a lot of the Pac-12 presidents, what they're terrified of is if they lose Oregon and Washington and Stanford, for example, then they're in trouble. And so then something like, a bunch of them shifting over to the Big 12 might be a great idea. But I think the Big 12 leaders and the Pac-12 leaders would ideally like to keep their conferences manageable. I mean, they're talked about we should have some kind of, we'll call it a joint venture. We won't use the A word anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We won't call it an alliance, but something where they could work together, doing something like that. I think there's a lot of possibilities, but a lot of it's going to depend on Notre Dame. It's going to depend on the Big Ten. It's going to depend on Oregon and Washington. His comment, I don't know if you guys said the actual words. I pull up his transcript here. He said, I've been spending 4 weeks trying to defend against grenades that have been lobbed in from every corner of the Big 12, trying to destabilize our remaining conference. I understand why they're doing that. When you look at the relative media value between the two conferences, I get it. I get why they're scared, why they're trying to destabilize it. I was just tired of that. And then he kind of laughed and said, probably not the most collegial thing I've ever said. He's sort of like right there he's making peace with them. Now, you notice he's saying from every corner of the Big 12. What that's sort of implying is probably not as much your mark as it is, again, all these sort of yahoos. A lot of you guys have talked about media values and stuff. I mean, we could do a whole thing on this. Do not listen to a BYU dentist with a Google sheet trying to interpret, extensive media financial valuations. Like, these people do not know what they're talking about. A lot of times when they're putting up numbers, they're not apples to apples numbers. They're looking at Big 12 projections, for example, that include things like NCAA basketball money, basketball media value, college football playoff money, and all that stuff that adds on. And then they look at just an initial ESPN low bid offer on the Pac-12 media market, and they start to dance around because that's fun. So I would try to keep that in mind a little bit because it is not apples to apples.
No, and I wonder how much of this, and look, you gave us a chart about the real TV values of each program. And my alma mater was still number one on the ones that we had.
Number one?
Yeah. Of the ACC and Big 12 and Pac-12, the leftovers, the ones that haven't jumped leagues, so OU, Texas, USC, and UCLA moved out of that. And there's a lot more factors when it comes to TV ratings than just maybe the overall numbers for a certain broadcast, because channel matters, time matters, those 100%. Things matter.
And they matter a lot more. So I'm actually, I don't know if you guys know the YouTuber D1360. He's awesome. This guy named Ryan in Chicago, who's kind of become a friend of mine. We've been talking actually about, we're trying to do some better TV analysis data. So I'll tell you, I've done actually some pretty deep regression dives into 5 years of TV data. And the number one determinant of how many people are watching a game has nothing to do with the teams that are on. It's about channel. So the channel is going to always pick a good game. And, my uncle's going to watch it. Probably whatever's on ABC, he's going to watch it. I mean, they're not putting on, Sam Houston State versus Ball State on the, big noon kickoff, right? So there's some chicken or the egg because they're putting on the good game. But what matters more than anything else is the game, just the channel that it's on, and then the importance of the game. How important are the teams? Are they ranked? Are they winning? And stuff like that. This argument between, this nasty argument between fan bases is dumb because you're talking about, maybe 10% of the impact on viewership. It's not a lot. And so the TV viewership is really determined more than anything else, again, by the channel that it's on and the game. Now, then you get, somebody like Ohio State, they'll have a big impact, actually, because there's a lot of people. But for most of these teams, there's really very little impact. The difference between Baylor and Cal is not much.
Well,
as far as it's driven by the school, I mean.
Well, yeah, and it was kind of interesting that like the charts that you sent and the things where if you look at number 1 and then all the way down to number 40 or whatever it was, the difference wasn't a million total people. It was in 150,000 maybe throughout. Like there's not these big gaps. So these whales that people maybe think they're hunting for aren't really out there.
They're all minnows. They're all just minnows. The difference is minnows. And there are other elements of that go into it. And I'll tell you another big element that we sort of found is like, what else is on? This is why they talk about Pac-12 After Dark being really valuable, because there's not other things on. But the other thing that I was actually talking to a guy who's done some extensive work in media stuff with this. But what's really, really valuable to the networks is the games that tons of people watch. This is why USC, Texas, Ohio State, have huge values, because a lot of advertisers like Budweiser or whatever are trying to reach all kinds of people. So they don't want to I'm watching games all day, right? So I might see the same ad 10 different times. Well, they don't want me to see the ad 10 times. They want like my mom and my grandma and my aunt and my cousin to all see that ad, and so they want to pay extra for certain teams, for the Michigan-Ohio State game so that everybody can see it. Another thing that plays a role in this that nobody talks about, because again, we're all sort of trying to crunch stupid data that we have a lot of times that we see or that BYU Dennis put on Twitter, but we don't understand also media valuations matter. So I'll tell you guys something kind of funny. I don't know if you guys probably don't know this, a lot of your folks. The Ivy League has a deal with ESPN Plus that is like stupidly lucrative for how few people watch it. The reason is that like the people that want to watch Princeton versus Dartmouth in football or lacrosse, like it's not a lot of people, but those people are really, really attractive advertising targets. So if you're like JP Morgan Chase private client banking services, like, and you're trying to like advertise people like, funny. So guys, I went to the University of Pennsylvania for grad school. And we get the alumni magazine. They have the silliest ads. Well, they're not silly. I guess they're real, but they say things like, "Are your children ready to manage their trust fund? We can help." Like that's they want to advertise to people that get that stuff, that want that, and so there's enormous value in it. But like SMU is probably a very attractive advertising space because like people that want to watch SMU football can like afford jewelry or whatever you're trying to advertise. And we as fans, when we're just sort of like trying to prove our team is all cool and looking at data from BYU Dennis on Twitter, we're not actually thinking about any of that at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's interesting, just being in radio as long as I have, sports radio over the air, radio does not traditionally, outside of a few markets like Nashville and Dallas and places that are kind of upside down when it comes to those things, get ratings because the rating system is dumb. It doesn't make sense. But what sports radio usually has is people who are college educated, own homes and all that. So when you go to advertise, you can tell them, like, and I'll tell advertisers anyone watching now, the people who watch this show are super smart and successful. So advertise with us. I can doing that in real time, but that's the sales pitch. And that's not, that's why the Ivy League has that deal. So it's true that way across the board. People don't really know that because most of the time the commercials you see are for McDonald's and everybody eats at McDonald's,
Exactly.
There's no price point there. They just want people to come through. They don't care how much money you make because they're price pointed to where everybody can go eat there.
Totally. And that's just something that we just don't realize, again, as fans, like, and this is why, I try to put out some of the stuff to help folks understand, like, hey, this stuff is not what we all think. And I try to give, you guys can go on my Twitter page and get, like, a lot of stuff that is trying to be, like, just data for you guys to then see and understand about your team. I'll also tell you one thing I've noticed that was sort of seeing stuff today that's very different. The Baylor fans, and there's a lot of them, their attitude towards this whole realignment thing seems to be like, hey, if there's this is sort of generalizing and everybody's different, but the Baylor attitude from fans seems to be like, hey, if the Pac-12 goes down a problematic road, we want to be here and grab some of these awesome schools that might need a place to be. The Iowa State and Kansas State people want to like burn the West Coast with torches. And so I think it's maybe I don't know. Is it because they applied and didn't get in, whereas Baylor didn't really want to go? I don't know. There's probably a lot of reasons. But I think that's the difference is that, like, a lot of your fans are Baylor fans just because I see them on Twitter and they're awesome folks. And they're not like this nasty, like you're seeing people be like, death to Pac. Like, it's like, guys, what did they ever do to hurt you? Your problems are in Birmingham and Bristol. They're not. They're definitely not in San Francisco.
No. I do think there is some, and we got to go here in a second, but there is some synergy between what Washington State and Oregon State are going through now and what Iowa State and Kansas State, and to an extent Baylor, for sure, Oklahoma State, we're all going through last year. In that, okay, like, if it's about all these things that, you can't make Manhattan or Ames or Waco or Stillwater all of a sudden a big market. Like, you can't just do that. Like, you can be like, well, more people need to watch here. You can't, like, the mayor of Waco can't, I could have him on. His name's Dylan Meek. I could have Dylan on right now, and he could be like, please, when Baylor's on television, all of you have to watch it so that we get a huge number. But you can't do that.
No, and I'll tell you also, one of the things that I find frustrating that I notice I'm hearing a lot of people say is people talk about, like, the markets, like, just of where that school is. But, like, if you think about, like, FSU or, like, Miami, like, FSU grads are all throughout Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, like, is it the Tallahassee market? No, it's not the Tallahassee market. It's Tallahassee and it's Tampa and it's Miami. Like, there's Florida State fans all over there. And, I mean, and the same thing is true, like, okay, Waco might be small, but how many Baylor grads stay in Waco versus how many Baylor grads go to Houston and Dallas? Like, one of the things, it's probably tons, I would think. Like, there's overlap. And that's one of the things about the Big 12 is the Big 12 lost Texas and A&M, which is very painful because a lot of viewers, are tied to those places. But the Big 12 still owns Texas, is still all over Texas. The Texas Tech fans are all over Texas. They're not. It's not that Lubbock is small because Texas Tech fans and Texas Tech viewers are in Dallas and Austin and Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Tony, after today and what George Kliavkoff said, and Brett Yormark will certainly have some sort of response to it.
Retort. I can't wait for it. I think I'm here. I'm totally living for it. I think it's gonna be great.
So, where is the Pac-12 realistically in this? Like, do you feel like they're still running scared, or is this the kind of, like you said earlier, this is just let's pause for a second and we're all getting our ducks in a row?
I think it's where pause will get our ducks in a row. I mean, so I joke with folks. They say, hey, guys, the sun did rise, the sun did set, and Arizona sure ain't off to Texas yet. Of course, that could change in 5 minutes. But one of the issues that I think we are forgetting is that the presidents don't really want to have to go. And remember, think about government and thinking about higher education. If they can avoid making a change, like a giant catastrophic change in something, they're going to avoid doing that. Same thing with the Big 12 presidents who like the conference they had and put it back together, which is awesome. I think they're going to try to do that. The problem is if Stanford, Oregon, Washington, Cal go somewhere else, then all of a sudden you're talking about a different game. And I think that's where the idea of, okay, here's what we do if, and I would say it's not like plan A, plan B. People don't think of it as like, particularly the Big 12 fans, don't think of it as a bad thing. Think of it as a contingency thing. The best thing for the Big 12, actually, I think, is to have more conferences, because the Big 12, you don't want to be like the permanent like JV conference. Instead, you want to be part of the big club. And so I think strategically, the Big 12 is best off if the Pac-12 succeeds and thrives. And the funny thing is, by the way, that is exactly what the Pac-12 and the ACC very loudly said last year about the Big 12. Jim Phillips especially was like, and George Kliavkoff as well, both said we want the Big 12 to succeed, and a successful Big 12 is important for college sports, and it's important for our conferences. And I think that the same attitude should be there, except with the sort of the little caveat that's like, hey, by the way, if you're on fire, you can come stay in our house.
Well, that's a great point. Tony Altimore, at TJ Altimore on Twitter. Follow him. He's got great stuff. He puts that all the time, and has been a great resource. Tony, great to talk to you, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Talk to you soon.
All right. There you go. So finally we got it through there. And sorry, we're going to have to really apologize to Grayson Grunhafer here. But He's fine.
He'll be all right.
He'll be all right. We had the technical issue, but thanks for everybody, hitting the like button and all the stuff that Tony had to say. It is good on days where there's a lot of bravado and things thrown around that you can kind of say, okay, what does this really mean?
Right.
Let's translate it, because you do have to translate bravado into English.
I thought he brought up a really kind of solidify what we were talking about before with the markets, but I never even thought about it from like the JP Morgan aspect of that. But at the same time, does that translate into Baylor's market?
Well, that stuff doesn't, but I'll tell you, but that's why those things happen. So that's why the TV ad dollars is a real diverse, crazy thing.
Right.
Because they've got that great deal. That's why it may not translate into, there's, Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas are at big agricultural areas.
Right.
So, if you're going to buy advertising there, you're targeting an audience that is, more rural. So what are they into? What are they going to buy? They're not trust funds for the most part, but the Ivy League, Princeton, Dartmouth, is your child ready to manage their trust fund? Then that's where you go. That's why you get that, ridiculous ESPN Plus deal if you're the Ivy League, because you can go to them and be like, hey, the money coming back to you, look, I'll just say that, say we have a client that sells a really valuable thing.
Right.
Just really the super valuable widget. We'll call it the widget. I can go and tell them, look, you can spend X amount of dollars for us, and if you sell one thing, you've already paid for us.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's that. So, that's kind of what they're doing. You go to JP Morgan Chase, hey, if you guys get, 100 new clients that want to manage their trust funds with you, you've paid for this 10 times over. So, this should be nominal to you.
Right.
And that's kind of the pitch. What the most pitch of advertising is here's the value we can bring you. Here's what our advertising costs. Here's what your big thing, if you want to sell these things. So if you spend this much a month and you sell one thing and have already paid for it, then what are you doing? If you sell two, bam. If you get 4-to-1 ROI, that's what everybody wants, bam. Hey, even better. Even better. All right, we're up against it. I owe Grayson Grunhaver a huge apology. I don't know if I'm going to give it to him, but I know I owe it to him. Kind of like if you owe somebody $5 and you see him, you just got to skip it.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see if I apologize or not. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
All right, going to have to take this call on the fly because the show started again. We were going over what was going on, but I'm sure you can hear me. Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com. Grayson, I know that Jack already apologized to you, so that means that I don't have to for running long.
No, you absolutely don't. I just figured, I was like, he's got to be calling me sometime soon. We got a lot to talk about.
We
Definitely a very important prospect.
Well, here's the deal. So I didn't even think about this at first, but if Malachi Nelson is visiting Texas A&M, that kind of sets up a domino effect of whether he makes a decision and changes his mind or not, of things that could very much affect Baylor in Austin Novosad, right?
That's a great question. I think it's a question and a point that a lot of people have brought up. And I don't know how accurate it is. And the reason why I say that is because if you kind of look at kind of what Texas A&M has done and also kind of what Baylor has done, it's been kind of polar opposites, right? So Texas A&M, they've looked at a lot of different prospects. They've offered a lot of different quarterbacks. They've kind of, spread things out a little bit. And part of it is because they lost the commitment in Eli Holstein a while ago, who ended up coming to Alabama, and that made them kind of restructure things. So you saw them go out and, offer Dante Moore and go out and talk to Jaden Rashada as well. And so they've really kind of cast a wide net, which just makes you believe, they really want a 2023 quarterback really badly. On the Baylor side, it's been the complete opposite, right? Where they've just been kind of like, we know the guy that we want. We know we want Austin. Austin's been our number one priority for a long time. And I think that those two polar opposites are kind of showing themselves right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean A&M doesn't want Austin or that A&M's moved on from Austin. I think it's more that they're just kind of hedging their bet a little bit and making sure that they have some security in case Austin does decide to stick to his commitment at Baylor, which, I think we're probably going to find out in the next week.
Yeah, I actually talked to a guy who covers Notre Dame, Christian McCollum. I think you might know Christian, but Christian, they did a story on Austin Novosad's visit to Notre Dame, and he sent me the link to it. And basically, Austin's visit to Notre Dame was like, yeah, it was cool to come here, but that was about all he gave him.
Yeah, and that's how I would classify it. It was a good unofficial visit. Austin had never been to Indiana before. It was one of those things that it's just, a cool place to go visit, right? I mean, it's Notre Dame. It's the same reason why you take a visit to Ohio State, prestigious school.
I think the alumni network and the football history, those type of things really stood out to him. The academics, also very good at Notre Dame, also stood out to him. But again, I think it's kind of like you said, everything that I heard from that trip was good. And I think the problem for Notre Dame is it's not an unofficial visit. So you only got him there for a day, literally got there Tuesday morning and then, showed up the night before, but was only there for Tuesday and then had to leave. And so it's one of those things where you just don't have enough time. And so you really needed that one day to just really work a miracle, right? I mean, if Austin's going to decide next week, which is what he's told me, then it's really hard to get a kid to come, to flip unless you just put together one of the best visits he's ever seen. And to me, I don't think I really saw that.
Yeah, and he will be here tomorrow, correct?
Yes, and actually that's kind of I think another piece of the puzzle, right, is that he had set this date probably 2 months ago that he was going to be at this camp and that he was going to compete in this camp, and mainly for the unofficial visit reasons. But also I think he is, at least from what I've been told from him, is that he is going to compete in this camp. I don't know how long, I don't know how much, but the main point is the unofficial visit part. And then on the flip side of that, Baylor's been able to make a really nice weekend out of this for the commits. So you're going to see probably 15 of the 2023 commits show up. And that's a big deal as well, right? Because you get a little event built around all of your commits, but also it's just, your quarterback commits there and he's deciding in a week. And I just think that's another really cool aspect to this recruitment. And I think that could play a big role in his decision, just getting to be with all the commits again and see some of the new guys that maybe he hasn't met before, and getting to know them a little bit as well.
So Malachi Nelson coming to A&M, he's probably to visit. He's probably not going to, after he said, when he was committed to Oklahoma and went with Lincoln Riley, he's followed Lincoln Riley to 2 places. This feels to me like a marketing decision almost for Malachi Nelson, knowing that USC, if you want to go talk to Jimbo Fisher, there's NIL, if that's what this is about. And on Austin Novosad's side from A&M, it's, if this kid doesn't come here, we've got to at least start investigating every other option that we can get.
Right, and A&M's pretty much investing every single option they possibly can. They've been doing that for a while. And so that's one of those things that it's just kind of been consistently, that's been a trend for them. As far as Malachi goes, I think it's again, he gets an opportunity to go visit another place. I think NIL could be playing a big role in some things as well. If you kind of look at his recruitment a little bit, I think that there could be some, schools possibly, offering some nice NIL deals, and maybe that's something that interests him in the long run. And we know that A&M has been kind of not at the forefront, but they've been a school that have been linked to, having really good NIL deals, at least early in the NIL process. And so, I think that could be a part of it, but I do agree with you. I think Malachi is probably going to end up at USC. He's followed Lincoln to 2 places, so it really only makes sense. And USC, I think they've invested a lot in him, right? As kind of being, the face of kind of this school after Caleb Williams. And I think that Lincoln's done a nice job of pitching that. And so I'd be pretty surprised if he ended up going anywhere other than USC, but hey, good to A&M, getting him on a visit. He's another really highly touted quarterback and one that had a very nice performance at the Elite 11 finals, just like Austin Novosad did.
Anybody else catch your eye that's going to be here this weekend that's not committed yet?
No, they got some guys coming to camps that are really good players. But for the most part, this weekend, while it is about getting those unofficial visits and those camp visitors on campus, that's a big deal. This weekend is definitely all about these commits. You're getting a bunch of the commits on campus. You're kind of getting to have a little event for them. You're getting to have, the quarterback there. And it's just kind of this just really cool aspect that Baylor was able to bring together for this last visit. But yeah, there are some other good prospects that'll be there. Kelvion Riggins is probably, I don't know if he's the best player in the entire country for the 2025 class, but he's definitely up there out of South Oak Cliff, and he'll be up at Baylor this weekend. And I know he's young, so it's a long recruitment left, but that's still a huge name to get on campus. And there's a few others, but again, I think everyone should have their focus squarely on the 2023 class as Baylor tries to lock in, one of the top 100 players in the country and one of the top, I think people would argue top 5 quarterbacks in the entire class for 2023.
Yeah. I think it's funny that how you can sweat because, A&M had Eli Holstein and everything and thought that was good. And then the little Jimbo versus Saban kerfuffle. And then all of a sudden A&M has to get in on everybody else's quarterback because the guy that they wanted is gone. So
yeah, you're exactly right. And it's kind of this trickle down effect, right? So if you look kind of at some other places, for instance, Ohio State is starting to trend for Brock Glenn. And so he was the guy who visited, after Austin did, and also was offered by Ohio State right after Austin was. And now, he's the guy who they were kind of waiting on to see what Austin was going to do. And now Brock is trending in that direction as well. And now you just have this crazy dynamic where, A&M's looking for a quarterback as well. And all of these schools are just trying to kind of pivot into the next option. And I think that's going to be really fascinating to watch. And, every year there's always going to be at least 1 or 2 guys that really jump on the scene during their senior year. And I think you'll probably see A&M and maybe some other schools, Notre Dame specifically, as a couple schools who maybe try to get in on some guys who maybe arrive a little bit later in the process or develop later in the process during their senior year.
Well, Brock Glenn is down to his top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's Auburn, TCU, FSU, Ohio State, and LSU. So
yeah, and he's deciding in a couple days, I think.
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be Ohio State, just kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit. We'll see. I think all those schools probably think they're in a pretty good position, but it appears that Ohio State is at least trending for him at this moment, which is kind of funny because that's kind of what everyone was speculating when he and Austin were both offered within a week of each other.
Yeah, why would he go to Ohio State when he can make a wonderful life decision? I don't understand these people. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, Florida State's got a lot to prove. They got a lot to prove on the field that Ohio State doesn't have to prove, at least at this moment.
But they need him to prove it. Like, that's the thing. They can say, look, we understand that we have a lot to prove. We need you to help us prove it. We need people like you and all your buddies who are good at football. You're
right. When Florida State tells you we need you to be the future of our program and carry us into the next, the next chapter, they really mean it.
Yeah.
Some schools don't mean it. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Exactly. See, you're getting a genuine need. Now, I understand that desperation is a stinky cologne. So sometimes that's not the best thing. Grayson, your thoughts on the realignment circus that continues to roll on and George Kliavkoff's comments today at Pac-12 Media Days?
Yeah, I think that kind of based on just everything that I've seen, it seems, I think the Pac-12 is pretty much just in survival mode, right? They're trying to make themselves look as appealing as possible. And, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? They kind of have to do that. I think it's kind of funny that, a lot of the shots that George is kind of pulling are at the Big 12. And it's like, oh, but then when he talks about the Big 10, everything is kind of calmed down and a little bit more, rational. And I find that to be hilarious as well because, the Big 10 did just take 2 of their biggest schools. But, for the Big 12, I think it's just what it is. Big 12's got to be aggressive. The Pac-12 is in a position where they're very vulnerable right now. And I think that they're probably intimidated, fearful, scared for the next chapter. And I think on the Big 12 side, Big 12 is just sitting in a good position right now, sitting back and just kind of waiting for the chips to fall. And I'm very curious how things play out. But, do you expect anything different? Out of the Pac-12 commissioner right now, they're in a really tough spot. And I don't think anything he could really say would really help change the national and public perception.
It's weird. One of the things that the Pac-12 has going for it and against it is that they have schools that most everybody would want. That have options like Oregon and Washington. Like they would have options if they were offered those options. Just like everybody else, you have, schools that, wouldn't. The Big 12 is sitting with a lot of brands right now that aren't valuable. They know they're valuable. We know they're valuable, but they're not Oregon and Washington valuable because of brand and market size. So the Big 12 can just kind of sit and wait because they're not the conference that's going to get poached. So while it's kind of, ho-hum that they've got some brands that people aren't as crazy about, it's kind of a good thing that nobody's sitting there trying to poach them while some of these Pac-12 fish are in the water.
Yeah, I think the other problem with that, Paul, is another big problem with the Pac-12 is that Oregon and Washington know that. and they continue to basically tell the Pac-12 that, if that makes sense. Whereas on the Big 12 side, it's like everybody's together. Everybody's like, you know what? None of us can really act like we're bigger or tougher than everyone else because we don't really have a ton of options right now. Whereas in the Pac-12, you got schools that just think they are the best school in the country and should easily get an offer to the Big Ten. And the problem is that just simply is not realistic. You know, teams are going to get left out. And if they're not realistic about it, that's just going to continue to separate the conference and separate the people who are really the schools that are really on board with trying to make the conference work versus schools that are really on board with just getting everything they deserve, in quotes, as a program.
Yeah, the Big 12, you're lucky to have us schools are in the SEC now. Like that, they're gone. I mean, you know, and so because Big 12 dealt with that for a long time. You're lucky that we're here. We could go anywhere else if we wanted to, and that was obviously true. But that whole idea and the unequal revenue sharing is just something that is not necessarily sustainable because eventually you're like, well, this just isn't fair. And
right.
Especially when, you know, those teams with unequal revenue share bottom out, you know, and they're not, you know, winning or doing anything for you. So,
right. Like if Washington is going 5-7 every year, are they really, you know, contributing to the bottom line of the conference? Not really, not to the level that they should be getting an unequal revenue share. And even Oregon, you know, we'll see how they do over the next few years, but they just lost another head coach. And I mean, they're kind of in a spot right now where it could go either way, right? They could, you know, get back to being the level of program that they've been over the past, you know, decade, really. Or they could, you know, kind of teeter back to being an 8-4, 9-win team, which is good, but it's not what you need to be if you really want to sit there and say we need unequal revenue sharing. Like of the schools, like in the Big 12, for instance, you know, the only one that could really say, you know, we deserve that is really Oklahoma. Just based on what they've done on the field, the national brand that they've been able to kind of build. You know, Texas, on the other hand, have had a decade of just really not putting a great product on the field, which, you know, that's tough. That's tough to defend.
Well, and look, you say Oregon in the last decade. In the last decade, they've had 5 head coaches: Chip Kelly, Mark Herzlich, Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal, and now Dan Lanning. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's an average of every 2 years they've been changing a coach. So while their brand might be strong, you know, every 2 years you're changing a coach. That's not great. So
it's not yet. Somehow they've found success with all of them have had at least a season or two of success, which is pretty crazy with some of the names that you've mentioned on that list that you know one very, very closely.
Hey, I told you I was very concerned about that one when they didn't even try to make him stay. Like, I'm going to Florida State. Oh, hell, really? Oh, man, we're going to miss you here. What time's your flight? We'll take you.
I remember that, too. I remember you had some skepticism there, and I think that proved to be right.
Look, I'll just compare it. Mario Cristobal leaves, and there's panic across Eugene, Oregon, right? Like, what's going to happen? Who are going to hire? Like, all these other big hires are happening. How can you get in on this? Like, Oregon's big, but they're not that big. Phil not cares, but not that much. You know, all these different things. Like, can't just go swing. Like, what's the best decision to make? You know, that was the panic. Willie left. It was like, oh, dang. He's friendly. You know, like that was it.
Yeah, he just showed up in a great position in Oregon and just, you know, and then he goes to Florida State. And I know you've said this a million times, but golly, what he did to the offensive line at Florida State, just unforgivable.
Yeah, no, it was already like smoldering. And he threw gasoline on that. So it was all bad. But anyway, all right. Grayson, Grayson, enjoy your weekend. I know you're going out of town this weekend. Thanks for hopping on. And sorry we're late. It was totally Garrett and Jack's fault.
No worries. And I'm sure it was all Jack's fault.
Yeah.
You can put all the blame on Jack.
I absolutely will. He's not been focused enough on me today, and I don't like it. All right.
And you're the only one in studio. That's shocking to me.
Exactly. Listen, when I say jump, Jack should say how high, but he's not there yet. He actually, I think I'm worried he's going to throw something at me. All right. Thanks, Grayson. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, y'all. Have a good weekend.
All right. Grayson Grunhaver, Sick'em365.com. And Garrett, you're a big recruiting guy. This Malachi Nelson thing at A&M is interesting in the modern era of recruiting in that he's been a Lincoln Riley guy forever. And there could be domino effects that affect Baylor, you know, and part of it could be that, like, okay, maybe Malachi Nelson doesn't go there, but maybe they say, like, listen, Austin, if you really want to come here, we've got to know from you. And But it still seems to me like he wants Baylor.
See, yeah, and I know Grayson kind of downplayed it a little bit there, but that was my initial reaction. When I saw that Malachi was going to A&M, I'm like, okay, this tells me that the Aggies know something that they're not, releasing to the public, and they're going to move off of Austin and try to go elsewhere. And, I mean, why not? If you're Malachi Nelson, and there's players out there, and I'm not saying that Malachi is only looking for an opportunity to make the most NIL money. If that's the case, hell, go for it, bro. Do your thing. But at the same time, I think if you don't take those opportunities and you don't take those chances and go look, you're wasting an opportunity that you're never going to get back. So for me, seeing Malachi go down to A&M, I'm not surprised. I'm not going to put any red flags if you're a USC fan or anything. But I think it's one of those where he more than likely is going to focus on NIL as well as the playing situation. Why not check out A&M when you know that they're pouring money into that program left and right? But another thing that catches me off guard is A&M's loaded in the quarterback room. If you look at it, I mean, you have Haynes King, Connor Wagman, you got Johnson come over from LSU. So I don't understand the rush and it's like they're in panic mode that with their quarterback situation. I could be reading that wrong, but that's how it's coming across to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think it'll be interesting. I think he's probably going to stay at USC.
I think he will as well.
And I mean, this might be one of those business decisions of like, okay, well, I'm going to go look.
Yeah.
I got to go look.
You got that oil money. I want to check it out.
And then, that's the thing is like, hey, everybody knows, like, who's just been accused very famously of buying his whole class.
Yeah.
Why would I not go take a visit there if they asked me to, even if I didn't, if my L.A. blood didn't ever want to leave? Like Malachi Nelson's an L.A. kid through and through. He's from L.A., grew up in L.A. Now the coach he wanted to play for is in L.A. Why would I not do that just to see what's
just change of scenery?
People?
I mean, why not have a change of scenery every once in a while?
And believe me, there is no different place from Southern California than College Station, Texas.
If it was me and I was Malachi in that situation, I'm sticking at USC.
Yeah.
I'm not going in. I'm not wasting my time at College Station.
But, I mean, there are different spots.
Yeah,
now,
totally different.
I say that with love, considering that half of my family is
be careful
from that area. You see the Catalina name painted all over the city. So I'm just saying it's different than LA. A
little bit.
Different structure, different folks.
Exactly.
In many regards, it's probably way better. For example, you can get places in a reasonable amount of time.
Very true.
Yeah. So
pros and cons.
The barbecue's better.
Yeah, but the beach. Man, you can send me to the beach all day.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
College Station has some nice lakes.
Yeah.
They got great golf courses.
The Dixie Chicken.
Yeah.
Go hang out there.
Yeah. The Dixie Chicken. Yeah. Come on. You name me a place in Los Angeles that's like the Dixie Chicken. You can't.
No, there's not one.
I should probably name me any place that's like the Dixie Chicken. It's pretty unique. So there you go. Yeah. There's many great things about Texas A&M University. So, all right. We'll take a break right here. When we come back, Taylor McHargue, college football analyst, former Rice quarterback, joins us. This is Sick 'em 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience, where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com, call us at 254-753-7675, or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Sesmall, 10 of 11 on the year, from 28 yards away for an Aggie upset win. And it's good. He got it.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Had this guy on about a month ago or so. Garrett and I had him, and we can announce that he's going to be a weekly guest. Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, college football analyst. Taylor, by the way, that highlight was Texas A&M because I initially, at 4 o'clock, we were going to run that, was going to have a Texas A&M analyst on there, but they're having some big party that they can't do. So I did not. I found a highlight of you, but I did not get to put it in time. I found it after the show. So I apologize. You will have an open with your highlights in them.
Beautiful. Fantastic. I hope you didn't have to search too hard for some highlights of mine, but I appreciate that.
It was not a deep Google dive. It was not.
Good.
It was not. That's the beauty of YouTube. But Taylor, you played at Rice, which is, obviously outside this big gigantic bubble of realignment and everything that's going on right now, even though I know they're going into a conference, but they're not, one of the schools that everybody's, trying to rip and move conferences and all that. For a Rice student athlete to watch what is going on now all around you, like, how would you feel watching the Pac-12 and Big 12 and Big 10 and all of this like cycle going on?
Yeah, I think the shoes that Rice fills right now is actually pretty similar to what a lot of schools around the country, a lot of your G5 schools are feeling right now. And that's a lot of uncertainty about once the dust settles on this, because we're still not there yet. The Big Ten and the SEC who are driving this, they're still not done with the realignment. But once the dust has settled, what happens to the lowest level of FBS programs? Does the bowl structure stay in place as it has been forever? Is there some sort of new championship that's created? What do the TV deals look like with ESPN clearly associated with the SEC and Fox being with the Big Ten? what's remaining for TV rights if you're Rice, if you're even a UTSA, if you're a Texas State, take it to the Mountain West, if you're a UNLV in New Mexico, teams that have been playing football a long time, what happens once the dust is settled on this? And I don't think we know the answer. I will say some of the comments from the commissioners around the country with Media Day this week, did give me a little bit of encouragement that this is concerning to a lot of people, and it's not just schools like Rice, but even some of the Power 5 programs and their coaches and athletic directors. It's clear that we've got to have some direction moving forward that doesn't include just the powers that be in the Big Ten and the SEC, and like I mentioned with ESPN and with Fox, but taking it back to a school like Rice, it's a wait and see for most of these schools because they just don't have the power right now. There are so few schools at the top, really the Texas and OUs and Notre Dames of the world that are controlling this, and everybody else is kind of in a wait and see.
Absolutely. All right, what do you think about the prospects for the Big 12 as a growth league going forward?
I actually think the Big 12 is in one of the better positions relative to the other, I would say, compared to the Pac-12 and to the ACC. The ACC locked into their TV deal for another 15 or so years has put them in a serious predicament. I'm not sure what they're going to do. But I think the Big 12 is in a unique position because if you trust the rumors that are out there, it feels like they can go get a couple of these Pac-12 schools if and when they want to. And the TV deals and the TV rights that are being floated out there to the Pac-12 don't seem to be all that attractive. I actually think, again, between those three conferences and the remainder of the Power 5, the Big 12 is in a position where they can come out on the other side of this still in pretty good shape. And I think what's key for Big 12 fans to remember and pay attention to what these other commissioners and ADs are saying. Even the Big 10 is coming out this week saying they're in favor now of expanding the playoff. I think that's huge for the Big 12 because in a 4-team playoff format, unfortunately for the Big 12, that would likely be to their detriment because they need the playoff to expand moving forward to really have a seat at the table. But if this goes to 16 teams, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all that the Big 12 gets a couple teams in. It's certainly one with their champion, but it could be potentially 2 teams depending on what the outer conference looks like. So hope is not lost if you're a Big 12 fan.
All right, so we're going to have you every Friday at this time kind of previewing the weekend, so we don't have that for another month. So we're kind of previewing the season right now. You've seen a lot of the preseason polls come out in the Big 12. Baylor picked first in the media poll in the Big 12. How do you think that the Big 12 season is going to shake out? Because this is a league that at least top to lower middle, not necessarily top to bottom, but top to middle, there's not a lot of separation, and you can split hairs about, who's the best at this or that because nobody's really running away with this thing right now.
No, you're exactly right. And Texas, I hate to immediately go to the team that gets most of the headlines, but Texas to me is what's so interesting this year because it wouldn't surprise me if they were a 6-win team. And it also wouldn't surprise me if they were a 10-win team and had a chance to win the Big 12 championship and even make a dark horse run. I shouldn't say at the Final Four, but be in a New Year's Six bowl game because they've got the talent at some of the key positions. They finally have a little more depth at the offensive line position, but their defense was so bad last year. I mean, if you go back and look at some of the key statistics in tackling and explosive plays given up on defense, they were one of the worst teams in college football on the defensive side of the ball. If they solve some of those issues, this really could be a 9 or 10 win team. OU, what does Brent Venables look like as a first-time head coach? I think there's a lot of questions, obviously, around them. One of the teams that I would not be surprised to see, and I think there's some value if you're into gambling on these sorts of things, I think one of the teams that's most interesting is Oklahoma State, bringing back Spencer Sanders. What do they look like towards the end of this season as a team that, traditionally Oklahoma State is always sort of hanging around the hoop. They were in the Big 12 championship last year and came up half a football short from winning. There's a lot up in the air. And then there's Baylor, who is predicted to win the Big 12 and could very likely be the favorite at the start of the season and then run the gauntlet all the way through and end up being the Big 12 champion.
The other interesting thing to me is that this is not a league. It's been a league in the past of whatever the popular offensive or defensive scheme was. It was like everybody kind of ran a version of that. But now, given the new coaching hires, what's kind of happened in the last few years, like you've got teams like Baylor who are going to run the wide zone, and Matt Campbell who's going to kind of have that power old school Midwest offense, and Chris Kleiman the same way. And then you look around, and Jeff Lebby's at OU. That's going to be a wide open, fired up spread. Zach Kitley at Texas Tech now. Sonny Dykes is at TCU. That's going to be a ton of spread options. This is not a conference that you're going to see the same thing every week. Graham Harrell at West Virginia.
No, you're exactly right. Schematically, on the opposite side of the ball, I think what's key though is on the other side, top down. The Big 12, again, top down last year, not a great defensive league. However, your two teams that played defense at a high level ended up in the Big 12 championship. If I go back to in Norman, what do they look like on the defensive side of the ball under Venables, and how quickly can they turn the corner with him running that unit? Because to me, that was for OU and for Texas and for a number of other teams that were playing at a lower level, think like a Texas Tech, not playing great defense, which is what kind of the moniker that the Big 12 has carried for a very long time. But Baylor has done such a good job developing not only the scheme, but the depth on that side of the ball. And I know there's some key guys that have moved on to the NFL on that side, but expect Baylor again to be playing good defense, expect an Oklahoma State to be playing good defense on that side. And if that's the case, those are going to be the teams that towards the end of the season you're going to see putting themselves in a spot to compete for the Big 12 championship. The key to me is, what does OU look like on that side of the ball?
Yeah, another big question I have about Oklahoma, and look, they could very well run out and be 11-1 and wind up in the CFP. They could. They're Oklahoma. They lost a lot, but they kind of at least buoyed themselves a little bit with the transfers. But they haven't had this kind of turnover since before Bob Stoops was there. I mean, it's 20-plus years ago. So we don't really know how you can react to all that, even if you like what you've done with Venables and Lebby and bringing in Dylan Gabriel as a transfer quarterback and some of the other guys they've gotten. That's a lot to put together. Chemistry is important. You can't just kind of make it work in a short amount of time just by wanting it.
You're exactly right. And look at what happened with Sarkisian at Texas. Coming out of the gate, a 4-1 start, I believe it was, and then losing to OU. And then it goes off the rails because culture isn't established there yet. And at the highest level, at the OUs and Texas of the world, you can flip the script a lot easier because you can have talent and plug holes a lot faster than you can at most other programs. But I agree with you. It's unlikely that in 1 year you're going to have a scheme implemented and have them playing at a high level. You brought up Jeff Lebby. I do think it's interesting to point out he was the play caller at Ole Miss. And a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people think of Lane Kiffin as the play caller. He certainly had input, but Jeff Lebby called plays in that offense and was one of the most dynamic in the country. I think Dylan Gabriel, that he is a good player. I do think that's a step down, even from Spencer Rattler. Both of the quarterbacks that departed from OU, I do think Dylan Gabriel's a half step down from both of them talent-wise. But play caller that they have now at the helm, I think, like you said, it makes OU interesting, and you could look up at the end of the season. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they've gone 11-1 or 10-2, and it feels like they haven't really missed a beat.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Taylor. So last thing, do you think that there will be a dominant kind of runaway team in the Big 12 this year, or is this going to be a league it's not going to be Ohio? Like, I'm not going to say Ohio State kind of looking down at all the rest of the Big 10 like they have for a long time, but is there going to be a team that runs away with this, or do you think this league's going to be pretty even all year?
I don't think you're going to have a team that runs away from this. I think, unfortunately, for Big 12 fans, this is not likely a year that you'll have a team crack into the top four. I don't think there's a Final Four level team in this conference this year. I think you're going to end up with 4, potentially 5 teams that have a chance at this conference towards the end of the season. And this is as wide open as I can remember, where you really do have 4 teams going back to what does Texas look like? How good are they this year? And then you have people even saying, what is Kansas State going to look like? Do they have, are they going to put together a 9 or 10 win season and make a run at this? So I would expect this is wide open. I would expect that 3/4 of the way through the season, you still have 4 or 5 teams that legitimately have a shot at competing for this. I don't see there being an 11-win team in this conference this year. I think your champion's probably a 9-win team, and at best case scenario, a 10 wins.
Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, college football analyst. Taylor, super fired up to do this every Friday. Great stuff, and I promise you'll get some highlights soon.
No, I love it. I appreciate it. Yeah, fired up as well. Looking forward to the season.
Yeah, follow him on Twitter at TMcHargue16. You can see it up there on the screen. He's got some great stuff there as well. Thanks, Taylor. We'll talk to you again next week. That's great stuff from Taylor McHargue. I'm fired up about his segment.
Yeah, he always brings the heat, man.
He's 2 for 2, man.
He is. He's money.
2 for 2.
I wanted to ask him. I was thinking about this. Did you see the JT Daniels video of the photo shoot? It's extremely awkward where he's trying
yeah.
And I was just sitting there thinking, like, have there ever been any photo shoots or any stuff like that you've gone through? But yeah, man, that was a fun segment.
Thank you for the segue, Garrett. Before we go to break, our West Virginia helmet that you see we got here is from Kip of Morgantown, right here. So
thank you, Kip.
Thank you, Kip. He sent us a really nice note right there, and thrilled to be a part of the Big 12, he says, West Virginia. Better fit with the fans here than the ACC, which is too snooty in its elitist attitude.
I like it.
Yeah. Look, as an ACC grad, I will totally own that.
So it's like there's no lies detected, huh?
Well, I mean, look. Some of the schools, like if you think about some of the schools in the ACC, like, look, I'm from a lowly state school that's really good at sports,
right?
Or everything but the one we care the most about. But we were great at that, But there's also like Georgia Tech is like a high elite academic school, Duke high elite academic school, Virginia, North Carolina, Boston College, high elite academic schools. So yeah, I see that, like a little bit of like, oh, West Virginia. The mountain people.
We don't want the mountain people.
Well,
here.
no. They burn couches. Whatever shall we do? Look, here's the difference. There's a lot of ACC fans that sit down to meals that have more than like 5 forks.
That's unnecessary. We don't need that.
Yeah. And West Virginia folk are like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me some bread.
Yeah. I don't need a shrimp fork. There's no, I'm just going to eat the shrimp. Just going to pick it up. Here are my shrimp forks, my hands.
Exactly.
Right, that's mine. So I get that. I totally get that, especially from one of the schools that is good at sports and kind of good at academics. I'm not a bad school, but again, it's not Duke.
Right.
So I can get it. And the other thing is the 2 schools that are the best at football. Miami's a great academic school, actually, too, by the way. But the 2 schools that are best at football, Florida State and Clemson, are kind of like, they're not.
They're not little mini wannabe Ivies.
They're not North Carolina.
Right.
They're not doing that kind of – they're not AAU members. Yeah. So Pitt's another, big, great academic institution. Don't want to leave them out. That's also probably why.
I never would have guessed that.
Pitt and West Virginia are bitter rivals.
I would have never guessed that Pitt was that established.
Yeah, they don't like each other. So, again, thank you, Kip. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your kind words. It will get a place of prominence. When we come back – John Kurtz, he talks K-State. He'll have some great opinions on George Kliavkoff today. Believe me, he'll be fired up. He's from one of those corners of the globe that has been lobbing grenades at the Pac-12. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Erie Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. What are some of the things you have coming up?
You know, we kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves. Probably 9 out of 10, every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Erie in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Welcome back into Sikkim 365 Radio 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie. Faithy's here. Faith Lynch. Very excited. I just get so happy when we see Faith. You know, can't be mad when Faith's in the room.
No.
Yeah. You know, Emery's here. I'm waiting on some news from Emery. I just need a like just at any point you want to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. We're not going to put your business in the street, but I do really want to know. I've been thinking about it for 2 hours now. John Kurtz is you gotta check out his YouTube channel, especially if you're a Big 12 fan. But we've had John on a lot from the KC area and K-State. John, you have been very outspoken on your thoughts on the Pac-12 right now. When you heard what George Kliavkoff said this morning, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I've got to give him credit. I mean, whoever it was that came up with the line about we haven't decided yet if we're shopping there, whether that was him or whether that was some kind of media consultant or PR person behind the scenes, tip of the cap. I mean, that I did laugh when I saw that, but you know, I laugh in part because it's one, a good line, but two, does not at all like accurately represent reality. I think the reality is if one conference is getting poached out of the two, it's going to be the Pac-12. I don't think the Big 12 is in any kind of position to be poached at all right now. That doesn't mean that the Pac-12 is going to be, and it doesn't mean that the Pac-12 necessarily is going to disintegrate right now. But I think everybody knows what the situation is. And the reality of the situation is that today, I think the bigger thing that happened, other than George Kliavkoff's comments and the fact that he clearly seemed threatened, I thought, just by the tone of
all of the comments that he had. The bigger news to me is that Oregon's athletic director came out today and would not commit to saying like that they would sign away their grant of rights, and instead was talking about, hey, short-term contracts are better for business. I think that's along the lines of the comments from Kevin Warren earlier this week. Another thing that is going to take some stability away rather from the Pac-12 right now. So I guess I would say, like, kudos, George, for a good one-liner, but I don't think that's changing the reality of the situation. And I think the biggest problem facing the Pac-12 is it's not TV. It's not necessarily TV dollars, although that's a part of it. The problem is the stabilization of the conference and not being able to get Oregon or Washington or, heck, now Cal or Stanford, after what we learned earlier this week about the Big Ten's wish list, to sign away their grant of rights for any kind of period of time. And I just feel like in Pac-12 country, that whole task has been kind of minimized in terms of its importance and difficulty. And I think that's the real impasse that the Big 12, like Big 12 Twitter and Pac-12 Twitter, whatever Pac-12 Twitter is, I think that's kind of the impasse that everybody's at right now.
Yeah. When you said, what the Oregon athletic director said that or president said that the, shorter contracts are better for business, all I hear is Jim Phillips going, well, we know in the ACC. We know that they're better for business. We know that we have one for 100 years. We get it. We know. We've heard it all. But going back to the Big 12 versus the Pac-12, one of the things, John, I think is that, and I said this earlier on the show this week, is that the Big 12 is in a stronger position right now because they've already reinvented themselves. They've already started a new thing, which is the only thing they could have done. They could not ever be what they were again, and with Texas and Oklahoma gone, so they reinvented themselves into a new thing that has growth potential with schools like Houston and UCF and Cincinnati and BYU, who have maybe more concentrated fan bases, not all over the place except for BYU, but in the places they are, and big alumni groups. As for the Pac-12, they've lost LA. There's no way to get it back. You can't reinvent Los Angeles. There's not another television market you can go grab that will do that again. So that's why, to me, I feel like they are swimming a little upstream, because you can't reinvent, or you can't hit reboot anymore, and you can't really reinvent yourself into something that's on par with anything else.
Yeah, well, I mean, just remember, I saw Max Olson tweeted, like, hey, last year Bob Bowlesby accused ESPN of trying to destabilize his conference. A year later, it's George Kliavkoff accusing the Big 12 of trying to destabilize his conference. I mean, they are in the same position the Big 12 was in pre-adding the 4 schools that were added last year, which it's easy to forget, but that was a crazy time where there was no feeling of stability at all for anybody in the Big 12. I mean, that's where the Pac-12 is at right now, and I still don't see the route where you get Oregon and Washington. They're going to have to come up with something pretty creative to find some deal that satisfies everybody in terms of a dollar payout, satisfies everybody in terms of like what the revenue share is going to be, if it's going to be unequal and tilted towards the top 4 there in the conference. Will everybody else be happy with it? And I just don't see what the path is to actually making that happen. And everybody right now is out for their own interest. That's another thing we remember about a year ago in the Big 12. Everybody talking about where can we wind up? Oklahoma State was out here. Robert Allen, who does a great job covering Oklahoma State, was out here talking about we talked to every single other Power 5 conference that's out there. I mean, like, that's the mode that the Pac-12 is in right now. And that is, once that toothpaste comes out of the tube, man, it's really hard to put that back in. So I get when Stuart Mandel or John Wilner try to tell us, like, hey, it's not like the Big 12 is worth that much more as an entity, if more at all, to TV networks. And in a vacuum, okay, fine, I can get on board with that and I can agree, but let's call it relatively equal, okay? And shout out to Sam Bradshaw, by the way, for the work that he did, once again, cleaning up Stewart's mess on the TV numbers. But even with all of that put aside, like, this is not occurring in a vacuum. The situation for the Pac-12 is that if you're in Arizona, you could look at this and say, well, the money's about equal here, but I can go to a league that knows what they are, has that new identity you talked about, and is stable, make the same or more money now if I can bring other teams with me, and we can take over that after dark spot where it can be Big 12 after dark. If you have, say, 5 teams in that time zone as opposed to just the 1 right now in BYU, well, now you can use that Pac-12 after dark point against the Pac-12 and say, well, we can take that over. We can get that spot that almost guarantees you 1 million or 1.2 million viewers, no matter who it is that's playing there. And now all of a sudden we have the stability, we have a little bit more money, and we don't have to worry about all the infighting and everything that's going on in the Pac-12. while we sit around and bow at the altar of Oregon and Washington. So I think like that's just the reality of the situation, and I feel like that's being missed. And some of that is that people don't argue it correctly, I think, from the Big 12 side when we get really excited and want to tout what this league is, which I'm all about. But I don't think the Big 12 is worth millions and millions and millions more than the Pac-12 right now. But I think it's everything that I just laid out that makes the difference, and that's why the Big 12 is in a position of power. There's a difference between being in a more stable position and a position of power versus simply just being worth more money in a vacuum.
Yeah, and look, the Big Ten actually, shot a little arrow through that After Dark thing, basically saying, like, you bet we're going to do it too, because now they have two schools over there. Now, I don't think that they're going to, make them all, play 6 home games at 9 o'clock, but I do think that it's going to be pretty much out there. So then even if you're still doing Pac-12 After Dark, there could be a better game, USC and say Wisconsin on at that same time than what you're touting out there. So right now you better hope that nobody else goes into that 9:30 time slot. You probably shouldn't have said anything about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, the funny part about that is USC may not be playing 6 9 o'clock home kickoffs. UCLA might be playing 6 9 o'clock home kickoffs every single year to try and fulfill that for the Big Ten. But you're right. And I mean, this is another advantage, another box check by the Big 12 is just the flexibility in that. Like, yes, if you get the 4 corner schools or sub out San Diego State for one of them, whichever route that you want to go, you'll have some of that covered, but you also have all the way over to everybody in the Eastern time zone within the conference. So you have literally the entire day covered. So yes, the Pac-12 does have that advantage somewhat, but it's going to be neutralized by the Big Ten and the way that they're moving. And then on top of that, the Big 12 can offer TV networks the flexibility of being able to be on all day, literally all day, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. with the kick times. And that definitely is something that holds value when it comes to TV.
Do you think that it would be better for the Pac-12 and Big 12 and ACC to remain the same and hope that this stops it? Or is that naive to think that would even hold here in the next couple of years?
Man, that's such a tough question. Like, I had such a mixed reaction to the Big Ten press conference earlier this week, Kevin Warren's press conference, where on one hand, when he kind of leaves the door cracked open for further expansion and certainly didn't shut it, certainly did not provide stabilizing comments to the college football landscape. On one hand, I'm excited, and I'm like, okay, I think this ramps up the chances of the Big 12 being the conference that collects basically the best of the rest, right? And I think that's the hope right now is that eventually, whenever this thing all sorts itself out, there will be the 2 mega conferences, but then you'll get the best of the rest. And we're talking about scooping up some of the ACC too. And I think, all right, I feel like that got us a step closer. But you're also kind of playing with fire because at what point then maybe it gets to eventually the Big Ten and or SEC. They're going to take a couple of schools from the Big 12 and just completely blow the whole thing up, and it'll literally be just those 2. And certainly myself, this is where it comes into being a K-State fan, K-State grad, somebody that covered the team for 10 years. Obviously, I care deeply about it, and I worry then in that standpoint, like where K-State winds up and all of that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, I feel like where the Big Ten's at, and that sort of relates back to your question in general. I don't totally know. I don't totally know what the answer is to that right now. I just know that Kevin Warren is a guy that does not seem real concerned with that, whereas in the SEC, I mean, Greg Sankey actually seemed like he was. And some of the reporting, the Saturday Down South report in particular, where they came out and said, like, hey, look, we understand the viability of college football is important for the viability of us. This has to be a legitimate product nationally that people are still really interested in for us to continue to make money. And that seemed to me to be a really a very wise statement from the Pac-12, or excuse me, the SEC. Rather, the Big Ten now, on the other hand, is kind of like, look, we're gonna conquer. We're gonna go do what we have to do to look out for us. And not be Sears and Roebuck. Roebuck? I don't know. That was a new one for me to learn.
Yeah, they're trying to be Amazon. That's what they're trying to be.
Yeah.
And
yes.
be a big giant. But if you do want a 16-team playoff, that's also kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth, in that you could say, like, look, we'd like to be Amazon, but if we realize nobody else really is going to get out of the way enough to let us do that, we can always go to 16-team playoff. And then that makes a lot of teams feel better, even though whatever playoff is designed is going to be designed to get, of those 16 teams, 6 to 8 of them will be from those 2 leagues.
Yeah, the 16-team play, I'll be honest, that one really caught me off guard. I was not expecting to hear about that. And, the Big Ten was a part of the alliance, which some of what we heard from the alliance in killing the idea of the 12-team playoff. Now, I kind of knew at the time we were hearing this has to just be an excuse or something being thrown out right now for whatever the real reasoning is. But, we heard about player safety and not wanting to play extra games. Well, what are you doing with a 16-team playoff then? I mean, just creating more games and creating more scenarios for more teams to be playing that 15th or 16th or whatever game on their schedule. So, yeah, that was a new one to me, and that's another one where I have to kind of think really long and hard about, all right, like how would that affect the Big 12? I guess on one hand, more playoff spots would be better, but what does that mean for everything else, the mechanisms that are happening and developing around that too? And then could you get the SEC on board with that? I don't know. That opened up, I think, a whole new can of worms to discuss, but it's kind of getting overshadowed, obviously, because realignment is in the not in the rearview mirror. That's more in the rearview mirror. Everything else is front and center, which is realignment.
I think, though, with a 16-team playoff, you could, the way you sell it, if you're everybody who's not the SEC and Big Ten is, like, you guys are going to get more. Like, it's not us. Like, you need to kind of undersell it. Like, it's not us. It's great for us. It's even better for you. Like, stop trying to, like, for them, stop trying to tell them that, like, you're as good as them and just admit what they want to hear. Like, just, it's good for you. You'll get more. Everybody's going to be happy here. You can be world dominant and we can still be a part of it. Like, that's the way they have to sell it. Whether they feel that way or not, sometimes you just have to, swallow your pride.
Yeah, and you know what triggers in my brain when you say that is, like, this is where I'm glad that the Big 12 has Brett Yormark, because I think he's the kind of guy that can understand things like that and will understand, Kevin Warren's the one that even called him like a marketing guru, genius. I can't remember what the specific terminology was that he used. Again, there's been so many quotes from this week, but a guy that understands marketing and understands how to utilize this league now. The appropriate way to go about this is not to take the Jim Phillips route from the ACC and be like, man, wasn't it great 10, 20 years ago, the way this all used to be? I mean, you can't be thinking about that right now, and you can't be thinking about it like that right now. And if you're the Big 12, you have to brand yourself as different and alternative to it. You can't try to play the same game, right, as the Big Ten and the SEC with what they're doing now. So I think these are kind of like ideas adjacent to each other, but that's what really goes off in my brain is I love the fact that I think Yormark will not try to do things like that. He will try to be different, and he will try to carve out a new niche for the Big 12 right now and be very aggressive in doing so.
John, all this, and normally we'd have you on to talk about K-State. We haven't really get into the prospects of the season. We're a month away. Like, we've got so much other to deal with before somebody actually takes a snap.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking, like, when the UCLA story broke, I was like, man, July was supposed to be like the quiet month of the calendar. You can rest, relax a little bit, maybe take some vacation, and instead now we're just thrust back full tilt into it. But hey, I'm here for it. It's going to keep us very entertained up until the season. It definitely helps kill some of the doldrums of summer here. And I tell you what, if not for realignment, I'd be really focused on what's happening with the upcoming season, because I think this is going to be the best team that K-State has had, certainly under Chris Kleiman, and probably the best team right now. It seems like on paper since 2014, which was a 9-win K-State team that actually went to Waco on the last day of the regular season and played a game in front of College Game Day that would determine the Big 12 championship there. K-State still had a shot at a share of the Big 12 title with winning that game. I mean, a lot of it's going to hinge with K-State on Adrian Martinez, obviously, because I think a lot of the other pieces are in place. We know about Deuce Vaughn. They've got a potential All-American, Cooper Beebe, on the offensive line. They've got a potential All-American pass rusher in Felix Anyudike-Uzama. I think they've got a great first 22. Depth might start to become more of a concern, but there is a lot of optimism in Manhattan because of that. And the optimism with Adrian Martinez is he played in front of arguably the worst Power 5 offensive line in the country last year at Nebraska. And really, if you look at the analytics on it, I don't think it's arguable. He's got a much better offensive line. He's got somebody that can shoulder the load in terms of running the ball, obviously, and Deuce, and new offensive coordinator, and just fresh faces all around him. I think that was a situation at Nebraska that had turned kind of toxic, and there's ever a scenario where you just need a change of scenery. I think that was it for Adrian Martinez, and probably, frankly, for Nebraska, too, on the other side of it. So if he can be anywhere close to what he was touted to be coming out of high school, I think K-State's going to have a really good team this year, and the expectation around here is kind of, I would say, to take a step beyond what they've peaked at under Kleiman, which has been an 8-win team. So I think it's, can you get to 9? Can you get to 10? And if you do, then obviously you should be in contention for the Big 12 championship game. So I'm thrilled about it. K-State's also recruiting as well for their 2023 recruiting class that they have under Klieman. It just feels like a lot of things are starting to turn a corner. Unfortunately, the thing hanging over everything is like you always have to be in the back of your mind concerned about realignment and where that's going and how that's going to affect things. But there is a lot of momentum in Manhattan right now. For sure.
I think you kind of share my opinion on Adrian Martinez, and I think that he and Scott Frost were bad for each other, but not bad overall. You know, like that relationship just was not going to work. In that Scott Frost maybe got a little too greedy with Adrian Martinez's athletic ability and didn't take the time to maybe coach some of the things out of him that Chris Klieman probably did on day one, which is you're not going to turn the ball over like you did before because we're not going to put you in that position.
Yeah, and K-State's been pretty good with that. With the caveat again, when Skylar Thompson played quarterback. Now, Will Howard, when they had to go to him, he's been kind of a turnover machine. But there's a track record there of taking care of the football. Skylar did that really well, and he was better at it under Klieman than he was under Bill Snyder. So that's a positive. You also just look at the general history of Klieman working with quarterbacks. His last 3 starting quarterbacks are all playing in the NFL. Skylar Thompson was drafted in the 7th round by the Miami Dolphins. Looks like he has a good chance to back up Tua this year. Easton Stick is still in the NFL with the Chargers. And then obviously before that, we know about Carson Wentz. And in between there, he recruited and spent some time coaching Trey Lance, who's obviously in the NFL as well. So, I mean, there's quietly a very good track record of Chris Klieman working with quarterbacks. I think another X factor here is going to be how does Colin Klein do when the Bullets are actually flying as the offensive coordinator? Offense looked great against LSU, which was his debut as the interim OC, but look, I'll be honest with you. I mean, that was an extremely depleted LSU team. I don't know that you can take a ton from it, but it certainly did provide some hope and some momentum for him to get the job. So assuming that, he is what K-State fans think he will be, we all feel like he's a pretty bright, young offensive mind, then, yeah, I think the sky really is the limit in terms of potential there. It felt like, we all know that couple, that it's just bad for each other. I mean, it's going through my head I can think of a couple going through my head as you were saying that. And it's like, they may be perfectly fine on their own, and you may even want to date one of them on your own. But when they get together, it's like oil and water. It just doesn't mix. It's not very good. And I think that's probably the case with both of those guys.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, I've got a quick story to tell you about Colin Klein. When he was, and it was that year in Waco that they lost, but he was a Heisman Trophy candidate. And the Heisman Trophy campaign was Kansas State sent out these Band-Aids because he wore a Band-Aid on his face. So they sent out these Band-Aids. I had that in my house for 10 years. That there were 9, whatever it was, turned 2013, whatever that year was, but like 9 years. My fiance moved into my house last year. She is a Kansas grad. It was up in my office with all the rest of my sports memorabilia. She comes up there and she goes, "Why do you have this?" And I said, "Well, they sent it to me. I thought it was a cool thing. It's a Heisman Trophy. Like a lot of these things are unoriginal, and like this was great." And it was immediately in the trash. I have no idea where it is. It's gone. There's not a hill I was going to die on.
Wow, you didn't even use the Band-Aid? I mean, at least you could have used it.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Well, I mean, again, it probably would have been because she threw the case at me. But yeah, she's like, "No."
Yeah, no, that's good. And actually, it makes me happy that somebody still remembers the Band-Aid because that was a phenomenal marketing idea. And, Bill Snyder, for all that he was excellent at, never the greatest marketing guy because he just didn't care. And that was one of those things. I was like, you know what? Kudos, K-State. That was a hell of a marketing gimmick to help out Colin Klein there.
Yeah, do you know how many stupid just postcards I've gotten over the years? Like, come on, Band-Aids. That's something I could, then the it was great. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, John, thanks so much for hopping on. Enjoy your stuff on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter. Go to the YouTube channel, all that stuff. John Kurtz with us here on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Coming up next, we normally don't like to re-rack things, but Tim Brando, who's a frequent guest on our show, was so awesome yesterday.
Money.
And it was towards a part of our show where we did not have the most people watching. We have more people watching now. I encourage you to turn it on and watch it now. We're going to replay that interview next. Tim Brando, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. This is a great time for your business.
Exactly. And one other thing we do that a lot of people don't know is we buy jewelry, heirloom pieces, gold, silver bars, gold bullion, watches, anything you may have that you want to. If you don't want to use it and remake something like I did in a state yesterday and I looked at 35 pieces, well, they're probably going to sell me back 30 because it's something they're not going to wear, nothing to use. So if you're looking to get a few bucks or to sell something or something you just don't wear anymore, I make my wife go through her jewelry box about every 6 to 8 months, and the things that she doesn't wear on a daily basis, this sounds horrible, but I take away from her and then I'll put in my estate counter, but then that gives me the chance to rebuy her something new moving forward. Instead of looking down 20 years down the road and you have 300 pieces of jewelry, it's something to refresh and make her buy something new along the way.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Looking for a shot. There it is. It is Bedney. Touchdown.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, we have Truth Serum coming up now. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. And every time we miss you for a week or two, and you probably, oh my God, Smokey's texting me again. Tim, thanks for your time. It seems like something changes. And, of course, we've discussed USC, UCLA, and all of that. What is your overall view, Tim, of where we are with college football, and where is this eventually, in your opinion, going to go?
Gosh, fellas, I don't know how many times I can paint a brighter picture than everyone wants to see, but, I mean, I think we're simply in transition. We're about 30 years behind in transition because the sport has been slower than molasses to change. We're finally, ridding ourselves of the NCAA, which completely at the Division I level, which I think has long since been overdue. So that's going to really help, in the short term as well as the long term. And for anybody that's saying, well, wait, what do you mean, Brando? We're getting rid of the NCAA. We are. We're getting rid of it. In college football Division I, we're getting rid of it. When the new television contracts go into play for the college football playoff, I think the restructuring and reorganization of college football's power Division I programs, which would be the 65 or so schools that we have currently in 5 conferences, could be less than that now, could be 4 instead of 5. They will run and govern themselves as they should. And, it's my hope, because I've been saying it for all these 30, 40 years, that we unify. And whether we have a czar that is a rotating czar that comes from one of the power conferences and they have their turn in the barrel to be the czar, or we have a permanent one. Either way, that's what we need. The NCAA need not have anything to do with Division I college football. They screwed this thing up with NIL and the transfer portal. They did this to the sport. Okay? 15 years of kicking the can. Ed O'Bannon. How far back do we need to go on this? Okay? Just check the history. They did this to college football. And they really didn't care because, after all, in 1984, they lost all the revenue anyway when the universities of Georgia and Oklahoma got the Supreme Court decision that they did, and college football's been commanding its own television rights ever since. So some of the greed of some of those conferences got us to this point because they had the rights that the NCAA had lost. So we shouldn't have been worried about anything that Mark Emmert or any of his predecessors were doing when it came to Division I college football. The NCAA can just handle the men's basketball tournament. They do a really nice job of that. It makes a hell of a lot of money. It funds over 85% of the championships of all the non-revenue producing sports. Good for them. It's going to last until 2032, and then we'll see what happens after that. Okay, but the NCAA still can be in the business of intercollegiate athletics, yes. But as it relates to infractions, as it relates to enforcement, as it relates to sanctioning bowl games, why the hell do they have any say whatsoever? Why do we have a Division II soccer coach on the College Football Rules Committee? That crap's been going on forever. Okay? So we're in a hell of a lot better shape now in the direction that we're going, across the board. The landscape of college football Division I is in far better shape moving forward than it is looking through its rearview mirror. And if fans my age or older have a problem with, the players now getting some money, well, you better get over that. You better just get over it, because these players have been abused and have given their bodies over and over and over again, and a lot of them, after their eligibility was lost, were left with nothing. None of the schools seemed to care about whether they graduated. They just wanted to get their eligibility taken care of. Please stay eligible, okay? So there's a lot of looking into the mirror that needs to take place as it relates to why you don't like this or that. I get the fact that fans have always resisted change, and I get that fans, Smokey, I get the fact that they don't give a damn about anything other than their own team. That's it. I care about all of college football. And college football has finally gotten to a point where it now has a chance to cash in and make more money than it's ever made and should have been making for a long period of time. And part of that means that there are going to be some growing pains along the way. and some concerns, yes, that everyone has. But understand this. There are a lot of good things going on with NIL and the transfer portal. A lot of things you don't hear about. Okay, the celebrated stories of players holding out, waiting to get that big cash from Miami and whether they're going to go to Florida or not. Those are the things you read about because it's good copy. But there are a lot of good things going on with NIL and with the transfer portal. So we just need to regulate it, and we need to make sure that we stabilize these waves, these tidal waves that are out there with the changing of times. And I think we can do that with time. We need the midterm elections to get here and get past those midterm elections. And then I think the commissioners are going to go up to Capitol Hill, and they're going to have one party in control of both the House and the Senate, and they're going to get the ears of the people that matter, and we will at least stabilize what has been a wild, wild west as it relates to these two factors that the NCAA left college football with because it kicked the can down the street for 15 years and didn't do their damn jobs. So that's why we're where we are, and that's where I see us going in the future.
Tim, it's interesting to me that you bring up the election in Capitol Hill because it college athletics for the most part and, NIL and all this has been a pretty bipartisan issue, but, the parties aren't going to agree even if they do agree most of the time. So having one party, whoever it is in control, could actually get them on the docket because right now it doesn't interest either of them, right, to do anything because
it's way down the list now, yes. But to say that each party doesn't care would be, look what Gavin Newsom was trying to pull in California shortly after the UCLA USC thing came down. Okay, even he wanted to throw his 2 cents worth, and that's about what it's worth, in on that maneuver. He's got enough trouble in his own state, but yet he's worried about running for president. We don't need to go there. The bottom line is all politicians care about sports. They do.
It's low-hanging fruit.
Politics have been connected for years. Every state. I don't need to tell you guys in Texas. You've seen it many times over, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports with us, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Tim, obviously we'll get to hear the Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff. That'll be very interesting tomorrow. But it was interesting to hear Kevin Warren a couple of days ago, and I felt like he said a lot without revealing too much detail-wise on kind of the future plans, but left a lot of things open. What did you think of Kevin Warren's address, and did you have anything in particular you took away from what he had to say?
What a rebound from this time, I don't know, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. Comeback commissioner of the year.
I would say his bounce back has been a boomerang, okay, from taking over and then getting hit with COVID and basically looking as though he was a commissioner that would cower to influential presidents within his own system at the Big Ten level. And now that's just not happening at all. And as a matter of fact, any of those presidents that have a problem, like the one at Michigan, don't let the door hit you in your you-know-what on the way out. We've seen some of that, too, since that's happened. I thought he acquitted himself beautifully the other day. And, the other thing that jumped out at me, and I don't know how much of the media days you guys watched, but just the way the Big Ten conducts its media days. And I'd say the same thing really about the Big 12. Because I enjoyed watching that as well. You got a feeling as you were watching the television networks that were carrying those two conferences that it was the league's brand that was on display, and who was carrying it, you really didn't even notice. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, we know we were watching the Big Ten Network, but did you get any sense while you were watching the Big Ten Network's coverage of it that it was a Fox entity? Did you get that feeling at all that it was a Fox brand that was involved with the Big Ten? I didn't.
No, I know. I wouldn't have even. Yeah, if you would have asked me who carried it, I wouldn't have been able to tell you.
You wouldn't even be able to tell you. Yeah. Right. Whereas with the SEC, it's a TV show, okay, that they spread out over the course of an entire week with their personalities coming out. Probably more airtime spent with their personalities talking about, or at least trying to analyze some of what we've seen, that would last as long, if not longer, than the actual questions and answers to the coaches and players. It's just it's a unique and interesting difference that you notice when watching, how these big brands and conferences handle themselves and structure their media days. I found that very interesting watching from distance. You don't get a lot of news generally, but I thought that both Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, and Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, looked like the leaders that you want leaders to be as it relates to moving forward with transition and moving ahead. I think they also know, Warren, of course, being new to college, but with a long past in football and specifically the NFL to go along with college, and certainly you could tell he's comfortable in the role now. Sankey came up the old-fashioned way, as a deputy commissioner, as a guy on the infractions committee with the NCAA, moved up to the Southland Conference, and then as a commissioner as a young man, and now after working with Salive, he takes over, and you could say since Delaney left, probably the most powerful guy in college athletics. And I thought they both looked the part, and Warren especially sounded the part, as if to say, hey, we're open to what's going on. There was no real concern on his part when quizzed about the new rights deals. I think a lot of media felt like, and were reporting that we would know what the new Big Ten contract is, but it's not done yet. And he basically was like, this is still ongoing, and we're not done. But for the time being, this is where we are, and we're going to move ahead. And no one seemed to care whether the new rights would be announced in a week, 2 weeks, after Labor Day. He just calmed the waters. He was really, really impressive to me. And that's the best I've ever seen. He's not Greg Sankey in the sense that he enjoys and appears to look for opportunities to be with media. He's a lawyer. He's a guy that will engage when someone encounters him, but he's not really looking to be an ambassador per se. But yet, this particular week, I thought he came off that way. I thought he took giant steps in being the other major leader, and that's really, I think, what the Big Ten would want. And I should say this about the Big 12 because of where I am today. I felt the same way about the new Big 12 commissioner. I think I told you guys that everything I heard about him was really, really good, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles himself. And he clearly made mention of the fact that, hey, this is new to me, but here's where we are, and this is where I see us going. And that, frankly, as a 66-year-old broadcaster, it didn't offend me that he wanted the Big 12 to be younger and hipper, because I think I'm kind of a young and a hip 66-year-old broadcaster.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Yeah.
I believe that hearing the commissioner of the Big 12 talk about changes and growing the audience and getting younger and hipper and cooler, that's something that the Big 12 people really needed to hear. So, speaking to your base and making sure that you make them feel better about where they are and where they're going to go, I give an A+ to all of those three commissioners. I think all had great weeks, but particularly Warren had his best week, without a doubt.
Tim, there are go ahead, Paul.
I was going to just the other two commissioners. Jim Phillips the ACC is setting a deal till 2036, and he's probably going to have to fight off his own wars when it comes to realignment and teams maybe getting poached or tried to when they figure out that grant of rights. But between him and George Kliavkoff, which one would you rather be long term, considering they both have very different fights ahead of them?
Well, I think that Kliavkoff has certainly handled what happened to him with aplomb. And I think that a lot of people felt, I certainly thought that the case could be made that the aggression of the Big Ten with regard to the West Coast might be enhanced beyond the LA schools. And I think I'm not the only member of the media that felt that way. It quickly became obvious that no, that really wasn't the case, that the Big Ten was concerned only with Los Angeles, and then they had other places they wanted to look. And Kliavkoff, picking up on that right away, just did everything he could to start making sure that he protects his flank with regard to the rest of the Pac-12. Now, I still think the Mountain West, the mountain region, the mountain time zone, is an area that he really needs to concern himself with. Utah, Colorado, Arizona schools, that's an area of great concern, I think, for him. But I think it's pretty apparent now that the stronghold of the Pacific Northwest is going to be in tow, that they're not moving anytime soon. Nothing's really going to happen until Notre Dame makes a decision anyway. So I think he's handled it pretty well. Now, Phillips, who I've known a long time, think the world of, he was a great AD at Northwestern. He's got problems. And whenever you're banking on the grant of rights as your big thread to hold your teams together, I think that with time that only becomes a pipe that continues to get pressure, and heat and pressure will ultimately make a pipe bust. And he's got to find a way to convince people that he can make the ACC more valuable. And I don't know how you do that, short of getting Notre Dame. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, these schools over time, they're going to be looking around and seeing what other people are making. And it's just, I don't know that you can just hold on to grant of rights and saying, okay, there's the line in the sand. We know that legally we've got you. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think it could get muckety for him, in the not too distant future.
Well, it's different than Texas and Oklahoma because there was 3 years, I think, left, or 3 or 4. So it wasn't as if they had to wait a decade or 12 years like the ACC has to do. And so that did kind of hold.
Well, with the exception of Notre Dame now. Remember, Notre Dame is a partial member. Their grant of rights is only through 25. Just so you know.
Tim, it seems as if when we get into these realignment stories, you start to have these catfights among conferences. Fans, we get it. Fans love the pride of their conference and teams, and they get protective. I get it. But it does seem to me that maybe it's just this time, but that there are columnists or some who write that almost like choose sides of why this conference is better than that. Do you see that too?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times tribalism of college athletics does get into the media, clearly, because everyone went to school somewhere. Like somebody used to give me a lot of trouble. You're an LSU homer, aren't you? And I'm like, hell, I couldn't get into LSU. I went to direct school. It's now a hyphen school. Okay, so no, I'm not a homer, but if you think I'm going to apologize because of where I'm from, put this in your peace pipe and smoke it, okay? Because I'll defend the honor of my state and where I'm from, and the people have gone to all the different schools in the state of Louisiana. But yeah, it does seep in. There's no question about that. You see it from columnists, and a lot of it has to do with where they're from. You have to, understand and appreciate that. I see a lot on social media, people taking shots at Stuart Mandel. Well, Stuart's a guy that went to school at Northwestern, and he's living in Northern California. I mean, he's not a Big 12 guy. Okay, I don't think he's anti-Big 12. I don't. I mean, I know Stu. Stu's an honest, hardworking, really knowledgeable reporter. Okay, but he's from where he's from. So the people in the Big 12 are all going to think that he's a left-wing liberal that loves the Pac-12 and can't stand the Big 12. That's not true, but people always think that we have agendas, and people always think we have built-in biases. Brando's an SEC guy, and I'm like, really? I haven't done the SEC since 2013, and yet I still get it from fans all the time. And yet, of course, in the Southeastern Conference, check with some of their fans, they'll tell you I'm Benedict Arnold. You know, I turned my back on the SEC to go to Fox and the Big Ten. So that's just a part of it. Smoak, without a doubt, I think that you see it in columns. But more than anything else, what bothers me, it's not so much about favoritism from one side of the country to the other as it relates to conference affiliation. It's more about just the total negativity of college football. We can't find anything good to say or write or broadcast about it. And the truth of the matter is, yes, we can. We can find tons that's good. As I've said, I believe so much of what is happening now is, you know, to some extent, proving what I said 10 years ago to be accurate, and that we needed to go in this direction. We do need to streamline, and getting the NCAA the hell out of it completely at the Power 5 Division I college football, or totally, I should say, FBS level, whether you're Group of 5 or Power 5. We don't need people that don't participate at that level of football involved in making judgments and decisions about what you're doing at that university with your football programs. You don't need that. It just gets in the way. It clutters things up. And I think that that's the direction we're headed in. And not enough, I think, has been written about that we really are making some strides and moving forward. And, yeah, things are different, but things needed to be different for a lot of reasons.
Tim, do you see a national championship if there's not more than 30, 40 teams, whatever these so-called Super 2 conferences might be? Can you see that happen? No.
That's not happening, David. That is not going to happen. And I don't know why some people continue to write it other than they just want to lampoon college football. And some do. You know, a lot in the press that write also don't like the college game. And they're in pro sports markets, and they've had an axe to grind with college for a long time, so they want to strike fear into the hearts of many college football fans and tell the people in places like Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas, you know, you don't belong. They're just going to have 2 power conferences. You guys just don't get to play along. And that's just garbage. Okay. It just is. And it's meant to bring those kinds of feelings, the sort of culture battles, really, between haves and have-nots into the foray of sports, because that's what we have going on in news in today's times. And that's unfortunate, because I think we all look at sports as being the last bastion of equality. And even though it's not, we still want to think of it that way. Okay. We still want to view it in such a manner that we can hold it near and dear. And I know that's part of the issue with NIL, and players getting more than cost of tuition and their books, okay, for free. I understand that, but again, there's more to it. There's no sport that requires more physical work to be done and harm to one's body than college football. And these young men have been put in a position and given their all, and they're told they can't work. But you know what? They're also told you can only have so much time at practice. But the system says, hey, fellas, you better keep working out. Don't leave the campus, even though the coaches aren't there. We know the strength coach is watching, so you better be there. I mean, come on. These players are 24/7, 365, and they deserve more than just books and tuition, you know, in their futures while in college. They just do. And this notion that we're going to see unionizing taking place, listen, all of that is a byproduct of where I believe we're headed in the future with these new television deals, because they're worth billions and billions of dollars. With all this money coming in, fellas, it can be done so that a player that's got an NIL deal making this much more money than the guy that's the second string guard, he'll still get his by revenue share. Having revenue sharing for some of that television money that's coming in, when you start talking about billions in the Big Ten each school getting over, $100 million annually. In the SEC, it's going to be over 78 to 80 million annually. And I think when the Big 12 gets its deal, it'll be a bump, probably up, even without Oklahoma and Texas. You watch. I think they'll probably still get a bump because sports television, live sports television, is still so valuable today. And when you have that kind of revenue, I think there's a very good chance that we can find a way in the restructuring and reorganization of college football to make sure that the players get a piece of the television pie.
Tim, do you think that as many streaming platforms as have been mentioned will be involved in college football in the future? Obviously you're on the broadcast side. Streaming is going to be a big part of anything TV related, but just how big, especially when we're talking about potential outlets during these contract negotiations for conferences. The Big Ten, in theory, could have a couple of different streaming partners if they wanted. But just how large of a factor do you think that plays into all these deals we're going to see being worked over from now into the next couple of years?
It's going to be a factor. It's basically the new cable. Okay, cable cord cutting is happening. Doesn't mean that cable still isn't valuable. It certainly is. Our friends in Bristol certainly made it that way. I mean, there's talk. There's some talk within the industry, published reports about the potential of ESPN being something that you can get for free. Not all the other ESPNs, 2, the Portes, all the others. But there's talk of that eventually happening down the road. I don't know how close we are to that happening, but you keep hearing about it and reading about it in sports business journals across the landscape. But digital is big, and it's becoming even larger. But I don't think that it will be dominating college athletics at all. In fact, the Big Ten deal, even with whether it's Amazon or Apple, and as I understand it, you're reading what I am, both are interested. But that doesn't mean that linear network television that you're accustomed to, whether it's Fox, CBS, and NBC, won't also be part of that deal. That's what could make this so big, is that you could potentially have 3 major networks carrying one property as part of its national television rights, and in addition to that, having a digital service that is pouring even more revenue into the process. And I do think that, watching very closely, the Big 12 and the Pac-12, by the way, have to be looking at this, because if that is going to be the case in the Big Ten, then that will certainly serve. There'll be 1 year of Big Ten football in their new contract before the Big 12 and Pac-12 new deals come into play. So they'll offer a blueprint, really, that Mr. Yormark can take a long look at, and Mr. Kliavkoff as well. And that is another revenue stream that we haven't seen in the past, but it is going to quickly, I think, replace cable as we march forward. That's the direction we're going in. The networks themselves, the major networks themselves, want more and more live sports TV, because other than, presidential debates in an election year, entertainment television is not doing nearly as well as live sports television is doing. Mm-hmm. Okay, all of the by all of the different companies that survey audience tendencies that are out there, live sports TV is the thing, and ratings continue to go up, and rights fees continue to match those ratings going up. And look, college football, for all of its trouble, right? All the things that we talk about that are wrong with the game of college football, it's still it's the second most popular sport in television in America today, second only to the NFL. Okay, that means it's drawing more eyeballs than the NBA, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League. Okay, for all the problems it's got, it's still the second most popular and most viewed sport in America today. So, yeah, I do think that we will see the digital industry continue to grow, but it's not going to suddenly knock college football off of network TV. To the contrary, you're going to see more of it now than you ever have.
Tim, I just have a quick question before we let you go. Is hyphen up an upgrade from directional? Because if so, there's a lot of schools that need to start naming themselves after the city.
Wait a minute. I didn't catch all of that. Hit me one more time.
You said that you went to a directional school that became a hyphen school. I wonder, is hyphen an upgrade from direction? Because if so, there's some places in Michigan and Texas, like tons of places that need themselves at the city.
Oh, my Lord.
Well, as the late Jim Valvano once said, if you're going to go into the NCAA tournament, play the whole state. Don't play a portion of the state. Play Texas. Don't play Southwest Texas, okay? Play LSU. Don't play Northeast Louisiana. Yeah. Okay, don't do that. And for Christ's sake, stay away from the hyphen schools. The alumni will kill you when you lose to a hyphen school.
Absolutely. Hey, Tim.
Hey, before I let you go, next week I'm going to have my preseason top 10 out.
Okay.
I'm going to put it out on August the 5th. Baylor fans will be, I think, pretty happy. Okay, I'm just going to give you a little tease on that. Baylor fans will be pretty happy.
Well, thank you. Hey, by the way, I see the little videos you put out, the golf videos today. I think it was a par 319 out, water pond to the left. I love those, man. Garrett, you're going to throw. Here's Tim. He's a lefty. He's a southpaw. And we got the swing. There's no audio here. And there's obviously water left. Where did you hit that?
Great, but he just pulled it.
I pulled it. I pulled it to the right side of the green, about pin high. Had about a 40-foot putt. The flagstick was between the two bunkers, but it's a small green, and you got to hit a precise shot. And somewhere between my take back and my downswing, I got a little lake lock. Because the pin was in a position where you'd have to fly over a little more lake, and I chickened out and tugged it, as we like to say in golf. I tugged it slightly to the right, but I did get up and down for the par.
Good for you.
It is a pretty par 3. And the reason I put it out there was because we just spent $4.2 million renovating Southern Trace, and I'm trying to show some postcard pictures of some of the holes of our new place. We're really proud of it.
You should be. Hey, between now and when you speak at the East Texas Kickoff Lunch on August the 9th, we'll try to see if we can get you on again, maybe get into your top 10 as well, if that's okay.
Oh, trust me, after August 5th, you're going to want to talk to me.
All right, done. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it, buddy. That's a great friend of the show, and everybody loves it. And he loves college football. He's passionate. He could be the czar. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything he says, but he loves the game.
Here's one thing.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
All right. It's 5:51, so we're running early today. I'm really proud of us here for running early. We've run late the last couple days.
We've earned it.
Yeah. I've got dinner plans tonight. The last thing I need is to get, barked at on the way home, pick up my fiance. It's a weird thing, by the way,
how's it going? How's that transition?
It's great.
Yeah.
I have to actively remind myself to say fiance.
Uh-huh.
I actually call her that sometimes, not because it sounds cute and it's all lovey-dovey, so I remind myself not to be like my girlfriend.
Right. Just reiterating it.
We've left that stage. We've moved on. If I called her my girlfriend again, I might as well just call her like, this is my first wife. Like,
you'll probably get smacked.
Exactly. Not worth it. But yeah, so running early, super fired up about that. And this is top 5 actors in Realignment, the movie. Written by Paul Catalina, directed by Paul Catalina, produced by Paul Catalina.
Hey, now.
All residual checks. And with Garrett Ross. I'm the EP.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to be the funds behind it. But, all right. Number 5. Shea Whigham is Jim Phillips. If you don't know who Shea Whigham is, he's in everything you've watched in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got a role in almost everything. Like, he's in Wolf of Wall Street. He was in what was the show? Boardwalk Empire. He's in just tons of stuff. He was just in a great show called Gaslit. He's an excellent character actor. He could perfectly play Jim Phillips to the T of where Jim Phillips is trying to hold on to the past while slowly admitting to himself that the future is not great for the ACC right now.
Does he have a signature line? Like, what do you think it would be?
I don't Jim Phillips' signature line is, college football's never been about, like, he says that a lot.
Uh-huh.
College football's never been about this.
Right.
And it's like, well, it never was. It is now. It's never been about this.
Yes.
Yeah, but it is now. He says that quite a bit. We've got a lot to work out still. That's another Jim Phillips thing. We've got a lot to work out still. Shea Whigham could deliver that line.
I think he could.
Yeah. Shea Whigham is a really good actor who was in the Wolf of Wall Street. His part was so small. He was the you've seen Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who he was in.
He's the captain of the boat.
That's a very small sample size.
Yeah, when it's like, we might have some chop. We might have some chop. Like, that's him. But he's an unbelievable, like, you see him in anything else. The guy can straight up act. Emery's our other movie guy here. You know Shea Whigham, right? When I sent you Shea Whigham, you knew it. Like when you saw his picture.
I think he's zoned out.
Is that Emery?
Emery is totally zoned out.
Emery's thinking about his big weekend plans. Emery, when I sent you Shea Wiggum today, even though he's a character actor, you knew who he was, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, see, he knows. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Guy from Role Models.
Yeah. No, that's Ken Marino. That's the next one. Number 4, Shea Wiggum's the dude that was Jim Phillips. So, all right. Number 4, Ken Marino. There you go. There's the guy from Role Models. Ken Marino is George Kliavkoff. Ken Marino is a very skilled comedic actor. I feel like George Kliavkoff today, right?
He was pretty comedic.
Reading some good, like, fast lines. Yeah, I think that could be. If you know who Ken Marino is, you probably haven't seen movies like Wet Hot American Summer, Role Models, Wanderlust. You know, he's in a lot of that stuff. Real funny dude.
They got like the same facial structure.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I saw him, I was like,
that's identical.
I said, that's Ken Marino. Dye his hair white. Let him get up there. He's a casino, like, you know, GK here is a casino executive. Yeah. Ken Marino could pull that off well. Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah. So.
I like it.
Yeah. So, all right. Number 3. Sam Rockwell is Brett Yormark. I think Sam Rockwell is a top 3 actor working, not character actor.
Just across the board.
Top 3 actor. Sam Rockwell's in it. I'm watching that ish. I promise you that. He is that good. Won an Oscar a couple years ago for 3 Billboards.
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's heavy. He's great in it. Sam Rockwell's unbelievable. Unbelievable. For those of you who may not know who he was the bad guy in Iron Man 2, the secondary bad guy in Iron Man 2. Probably the most popular movie he's been in.
I don't think I've seen it. I'm not a Marvel, man. I'm not real big into that stuff.
But you know who Sam Rockwell is.
I do.
Yeah, you see Sam Rockwell, you know who he is.
I like it.
Green Mile. He was in the Green Mile.
Okay.
He was Wild Bill in the Green Mile.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it makes sense.
Yep. So, yeah, Sam Rockwell, and there's 2 other really good actors on this list. Sam Rockwell's the best of those other 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I love, the number 1 is a person I love unconditionally, but I just love Sam Rockwell. So, looks like Steve Perry.
Steve Perry.
Not me. I don't look like Steve Perry from Journey. Number 2, Mahershala Ali is Kevin Warren. I would have picked someone different for this until the other day, because if you ever see anything with Mahershala Ali in it, he's about to play Blade. He does like a lot of great stuff where he
True Detective, he killed it.
Oh yeah, killed it in True Detective. Like, dude can drop the gravitas on you, but also is like super smooth. And Kevin Warren, I would have maybe cast somebody else as him, but after 16-team playoff, bring it. More teams, we'll see.
Yeah, he went out there and just left, didn't hold anything back.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
Dropped it on the table.
Yeah, just there. Boom. What do you think about it? Don't care. Doing that.
You're going to take it.
Yeah. Mahershala Ali, that's he can pull that off.
I like that. I like that mentality.
I was debating him or Alton K. Brown, another guy who I really like.
See, I was confused because I thought we were going off of looks. And I was like, okay, I can see maybe some Steve Harvey in there.
You can make anybody look like anybody.
But if you're going off of persona and how he handles it, you nailed it.
Listen, Christian Bale, Batman, played Dick Cheney. They don't look anything alike.
No, they don't.
So yeah, it's Hollywood. They can
got the makeup, got the works.
Yeah. And number 1, Bob Odenkirk is Greg Sankey.
That's spot on.
Yeah. Look, the look is right there. The whole, Bob can grab that attitude that Greg Sankey has of look, if Kevin Warren's like, what are you going to do about it? Greg Sankey's even better. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. He's got that mob mentality to him.
Yeah. And in the last 5 years, Bob has, shot up the charts. Better Call Saul.
Oh, it's epic.
Epic. Great show. He did an unbelievable movie that I think everybody needs to see if you're into action movies.
I know it. What is the name of that? Because I've wanted to watch it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But I'm all on board with him.
Yeah. It's called Nobody.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. It's called Nobody. And it's straight up and down a classic action movie, but it is awesome. It is Bob Odenkirk in an action movie, which May have been hard to wrap your head around, but he kills it. Crushes it. Amazing.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I can definitely
Bob
see it.
Odenkirk as Greg Sankey would win 2 Oscars for the same role. That's how good it would be. He could pull it off.
I can see it. I like it.
Well, we're a big bad. Yeah, he could totally nail Greg Sankey. So, John Jones is Kevin Warren. Yeah. Yeah, nobody's hilarious. Yeah. Last 3 Sauls are great. Yeah, everybody, listen. If you're a fan of Breaking Bad and you haven't seen Better Call Saul, you need to
get your life together.
Yeah, get your life together. Absolutely. What are you doing?
Together.
What are you doing? Look, the oceans are full of plastic. We don't know what's going on in the world. College football is on fire. Better Call Saul will
save you.
It'll make everything make sense to you.
Binge watch it until the start of college football season. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Binge watch Better Call Saul.
Yeah. It'll put you back to zero.
Exactly.
Get you back to zero. All right. Thanks to everybody who's been a part of the show today. I'll thank Tim Brando again, even though he was on the show yesterday. Thanks to Emery. Thanks to Garrett. Thanks to Faith. Thanks to Jack. Thanks to John Kurtz. Thanks to Taylor McHargue. Thanks to Grayson Grunhafer. And thanks to Tony Altimore. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening whenever you do. Sorry if I couldn't get to all your chat and text today. It's kind of I feel like I'm herding cats a little bit here by myself. But we had a fun time on the show today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, everybody. We're back on Monday, full crew here. Tons of college football news and whatnot. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.